Okay, we're gonna do these minutes really quick. They start, April 16th is the first set.
March 11th is the first.
March.
So at one meeting, we didn't have a quorum, so we couldn't do it. And then the next one was a quick meeting. So we got 3 sets here.
Okay, has everyone had a chance to read the minutes? They look really good, Zach, to me. Did anyone find anything that they have an issue with, any change? Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from Thursday, March 11th, 2019, Thursday, April 16th, 2019, and Thursday, April 22nd, 2019. All in favor? Okay, that's done. All right. I think I saw Nancy come in.
Hi.
Did she leave?
Right there.
Oh! Okay, so we just mentioned the beach cleanup, and we were happy about that, but we have some questions about what we're going to do about the rest of the gear that's still in the mooring basin that didn't get completely cleaned out.
So I have been corresponding with the people who have been doing the ongoing efforts there. And I was just kind of trying to think of giving a deadline of Sunday to get it out.
Of Sunday?
Yep.
And, okay,
For Chipman's Cove.
for Chipman's
Yeah.
Cove,
Yeah.
because that's where the boats are going.
Yep. That's where the mooring basin
That's the
Yeah.
mooring basin.
Yep, exactly.
Does that answer your question? Does that help? Sunday? Sunday is going to be gone, clean.
We won't be able to see it when the next mine starts. If it ain't there, if it ain't going anyway. It's kind of convenient.
There are minus tides this week, that's why.
In the
It's
morning.
going by.
In the morning, they're coming back.
Big in the morning.
They're coming back
Going
again.
back again?
Yep, Sunday is minus 1.2.
Okay.
Well, we'll take it on face value and see what happens.
We know, yeah, Sunday the 19th, it's a -1.1, and the 20th, it's a -1.0.
Good.
You know, I looked at that stuff and I was like, for the life of me, I can't figure out how the hell you get it out of there other than grapple for it.
Go on the kayak in an inch of water and paddle through the mud, that's how you do it.
Yeah.
Ed's been out there every day.
Oh, I believe Mr. Tesson's work diligently at it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen him out there. I have no qualms with him. I don't believe it's all his though.
Right. No, it's not all, I'm sure. Okay, so we have to get a kayak fleet out there, somebody does. All right, so we're gonna go right on to the Shellfish Department update. Thank you, Nancy. Were you able to get that stuff printed?
I did,
You did.
yeah.
Is there enough for the audience to have it?
Made 20, so.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Let's see. Can you share? So, I guess the good news is that we were able to extend the base scallop season last year, or last month, and so it allowed an extra 2 weeks of harvest, which I think was greatly appreciated, and we worked in collaboration with fishermen to petition, and the Board of Selectmen to petition the DMF for that. The main focus of our work over the past month really has been Johnny and I trying to put together our propagation plans, looking at where we're going to do the contaminated quahog relay. We have our application with the state, and we will go on to that next as the next agenda item. We applied to Wellfleet Spat for a grant, and they approved it. It's about $17,000, and it is basically in support of our community-wide recreational shell fishery. So
$17,000, that's a lot of money.
it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. And they are totally covering the contaminated quahog relay. They
Wow.
are helping us, they'll get all of our spat collectors. So that'll allow us to collect wild seed. And they are helping us do the final outfitting for our coach barge. And there's one more thing. And helping us with GPS equipment so that we can track our coaching efforts. So it's really kind of investment into the future. And what we intend to do, which I can talk about in a minute, with our rec fishery. I think I'll talk about that when we talk about the contaminated quahog relay. But that was really great news and needed for the department. I don't know if everybody paid attention at town meeting, but town meeting approved the creation of a revolving fund, which you guys recommended. So that is great news, and starting with sales after July 1, which is the new fiscal year, 75% of all sales will, permit and license sales, anything that is shellfishing related that goes into the shellfish fund, 75% of it will be directed to a propagation fund that I will manage, and it will just allow us to operate independently in the future. So the first year, they just approved $5,000 being able to be spent from it, and then as we move forward and the revenues increase, then we'll be able to pull more from that. So, obviously, the other big thing that we worked on a lot was the purchase of the Hilda's Trust property. We did a lot of memo generating and meetings to make sure that we had an informed public at town meeting, and it did go through. The town folk supported it, and we're in the process now of getting a surveyor and an appraiser for the property. So it's moving forward. It's not moving at lightning speed, obviously, but these are, the next steps are to get it appraised and surveyed.
Will that information be public after you find that
I
out?
would imagine, yeah. Oh, and speaking of other public information, we are in the final round of edits to the upweller analysis that we contracted with Dale Levitt from Roger Williams. So we should be getting that report and present it to the selectmen at the May 28th selectmen's meeting, which is great. We'll see a little bit, they evaluated a number of different areas to do a nursery. And the other thing that's going to happen on May 28th, which I hope everybody will attend, is that Johnny and Chris won Deputy Constables of the Year from the Mass Shellfish Officers Association, and the president is coming to present them with a plaque.
And where is that?
It'll be at the selectmen's meeting on May 28th.
At the selectmen's meeting.
Yeah. Get it in your calendar now, folks. Don't miss it. We want a packed house. Last month, I think since we've met last, I'm not sure, I can't remember, but we got our new coach barge launched. I hope people have seen it. And we're trying to work with somebody to maybe paint it, maybe logos and stuff. But so we've made a couple of test runs. Johnny's made a couple of test runs with it, and it seems like it's working just great. We're so psyched to have a seaworthy vessel this year.
Yeah, no more
Not
water.
so scary, huh?
Yeah, last year I wore a life jacket.
That'll tell you something.
Yeah.
So unless anybody has any questions about anything, I would just say let's move on to the next agenda item.
I was just curious about, on this, under enforcement, it said you gave verbal words to a boat owner about proper tagging and conch regulations. Which conch regulations?
So the state is implementing a 3-inch limit on conch to take them.
Right.
Yeah, so everybody kind of needs to be aware of this. And if you're going to take conch and sell them, you need to have a gauge on board.
No, what do you mean by a 3-inch limit? I'm not sure about, how are conchs measured? I've never sold
I
a
have,
conch.
it will be going out in the crier.
It'll be going out in the crier?
Yes, because it's.
And do we need we don't need a special endorsement for conch, do we?
I
Only
don't-
if you plot.
What, only if you
Only
plot?
if you plot.
And is it true that we are not supposed to kill conchs
Yes,
on our grants?
yes.
That's kind of weird.
It's a,
That's a state reg.
yep. I've never
Yeah.
gone by one without smashing it. Yeah, no,
But it's a very lucrative fishery right now, and the state's done, I don't know, 5 years now, maybe, three years of research into spawning size.
Now,
And,
didn't you mention something about somebody coming in from out of town and putting some pots where they weren't supposed to go, or why is this?
So there was somebody who came and set on the south side of Lieutenant Island, and the pots were not supposed to be in yet because it's vertical gear, and it was a right whale closure.
Oh, that's why it was. It
Yeah,
wasn't
so that person, when I saw the EPO at the Vibrio meeting, and he told me that that person was supposed to cease and desist and get him out immediately, and then the next day, or that night, I think they lifted the closure, right? Stephen?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, they looked at it earlier than we expected to.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
after extending it twice.
Yeah, that's extended twice, but.
So, yeah, so the conch is a good story for, I guess, something that will come later in this meeting, but conch was not a very well-regulated fishery, and they didn't really have a lot of information on the species, and some Martha's Vineyard fishermen came to DMX and said they were worried about overharvesting, and when the state started looking into it and doing research, it turns out that spawning females, I believe, I forget what the size limit ultimately will be, but there's going to be there's going to be size increases over the next 5 years just to get to protect spawning females. So it's a very, it's a fishery that is desirable to get into, and they're fetching a high price, and the state didn't know a lot about them, and there's a worry of them being overfished and compromising because the females are being taken. So it's just a lesson that we can keep in mind when we look at our own unregulated by the state fisheries. Now the state is regulating it. And so, as I said, there's these gauges that you can get. The only person that I know right now that's doing them is Jeremy Buck Welding in Chatham. And they're a shoot gauge, and there's a video, so I'm gonna send this all out so people know.
Okay, I just had a quick question. Has anyone noticed a huge increase in moon snails in their clams? No? Good, okay, because I had a report from somebody that they had a ton of little moon snails all under their nets, which is not a good sign, so you were, okay,
How
so.
high up on the beach are they clamming? Just clamming?
How high up on the beach?
Yeah, there's different elevations that,
Because Egg Island usually had a problem with them if anyone did.
because on Egg Island, in the East Grand, there's been hit hard on for the
And
last
they-
15 years,
Right,
or since day one.
but they're
Because it's so-
not
Because
particularly
it's so
bad.
high up, it's for some reason, it's almost
They
like
like
they
it.
spawn like the sand, that you plant the clams and you don't
Right.
see them.
All right, so we should move on then. So we're gonna go to contaminated quahog relay areas and proposed rotation closure sites. Nancy did such a nice job on these minutes. It's got all the
So now
maps
we
and,
have pretty
I mean,
pictures.
they're not minutes, but all the,
So contaminated quahog relay areas, that's the next page after the report, April report. These are rough areas of where we're going to put them in shipments. And I have to do this for the state because this has to be closed. So the way that it works is, for people who are not aware, these are lightly contaminated with fecal coliform, and they come from the Taunton River. But they are a great mix of sizes, and the state understands that these will purge themselves fairly quickly of fecal coliform, but they make you leave them in a closed status area for the administrative spawning period, which is June 15th to September 15th. So then we can reopen the area on September 16th. The good thing about doing it in Chipman's Cove is it's a closed area for us in the summer, so it gives these clams a chance to spawn. They come in many sizes from little neck right up. I don't even think we saw any chowders
Not
last
much
year.
good stuff.
Yeah.
But you see, they're, you know, a lot of little necks and top necks, which, you know, would imply a spawning animal as opposed to a count neck, so.
and how many bushels were you looking at?
So because of SPAT, thanks to SPAT, we were able to increase, and we're going to do 400 bushels.
400 bushels,
Yeah.
nice.
So, Johnny, you really should be the one talking about this.
Yeah, all right,
this
so-
application. And you want to talk about the
Yeah, I'll get to
rat
that
closure?
too. Yeah, so two areas of focus for the contaminated quahog relay is specifically for the recreational area from in the Burton Baker Beach, from the closure line, from the South Breakwater, and it'll be closed basically to the rock, and it'll be well buoyed, posted with signs with orange, and you know, after discussing it, we determined that this area would be easy to patrol. Unfortunately, it's, you know, it's sort of easy to access too, and but I don't foresee us having many problems. The cove, we're not going to do. Last year we did them in a high density area, you know, like sort of almost like aquaculture density, with the idea of relaying them over to Indian Neck for the recreational season. We're going to sort of back away from that, and we're going to spread them out throughout the cove. Anyone who clams in the cove's got any good ideas about areas to concentrate in, we'd value your advice. Regarding this rotational closures, we're just not there yet. We have a meeting with the Park Service that may shed some light on it, but the areas that we thought to close, we don't want to, obviously we don't want to close a productive area. We want to, you know, pick a rather barren area and propagate it. We have a meeting with the Park Service. Perhaps that'll shed some light on the situation. But we will continue to, aggressively propagate. We're just not going to do a closure. We don't feel as though we have a site to make the kind of inputs that warrant a closure. We don't want to take Fish and Bottom away from people. We're clear of it, but we will get there. But we have seed oysters and culture to put out, so we will continue to work hard in propagation. But at this point today, right now, we're just not ready to close an area.
So there's a map in here that shows the areas so we're in the middle of a big MIPA, which is the Mass Environmental Protection Act review for mulching. So this other map here is the map that's in progress right now of areas that we can mulch. And so we're going to concentrate on this for now. And then what I...
The little rectangle?
Yeah, all those rectangles.
Just the cover.
Oh, like the Google Earth maps are the contaminated cohort relay.
Okay, all right.
And then the one of 9, the map,
Yep.
that's approved culching areas for now, so we're gonna concentrate there. And then I just would look to the wild fishermen to keep an eye out for areas that you think are, as Johnny was saying, barren, or could use some inputs, and we'll just keep working towards that goal. And we're just gonna continue to collect feedback.
Sounds good. Yeah, so that would be really good if the Dragger guys could come up with some ideas of where a good place to coach that
We'll hand out some
put
buoys.
them out of
We'll
business
talk about it.
and
I'd love to take
maybe
pictures.
get some
Go
going
hand
on
out
the
the
west
buoys,
side.
want to come for a run, whatever.
For now, the west
And,
side.
What? Oh, it's because of NEPA, the west side though, because of the National Seashore?
We're holding out hope.
Yeah,
Well,
Johnny's,
I think I can find that paperwork on the seashore, I know I've got that, I'm gonna,
I'm gonna give him my best charm offensive. You know what I mean? I'm really busted up about this. So, I was kind of thrust into this weird process in 2016. And I was in a meeting in Boston, and I thought we had the whole harbor. But we acted like we had the whole harbor
Right.
last year, but I'm still holding out some hope. So it's going to be a miserable, it should it not, it's going to require another consultant to go through with the permitting process.
the whole thing like Hillary did last time,
Oh,
all the maps.
yeah, it's just,
This
and
is-
yeah,
this is
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna need to do a phase 2.
Mm-hmm. But this will get us through this summer.
This will get us through from now on, right? And then we'll just do either an addendum or a formal addendum, or we'll start a new one for the other areas of the harbor that were traditionally culched. And in fact, I would love if you would all talk around back in the day. I need some documentation of historical culching activity in the town, going back to the beginning. So if anybody has anything, I'm going to collect it all, and the more information I have, the better as we enter into the second phase. But this will go through, we're on top of it. This gives us plenty of room for now.
Okay.
And as Johnny says, he's got a charm offensive for a meeting with the seashore. We'll see how we do.
Okay, so we're all set for that.
Yep, anybody have any questions?
Eddie?
Culturing propagation. When I look at the agenda, it says review definition of domicile to include period of time. Do we want to do that first before we get into the boat regs? Because that's the way the agenda goes?
Yes, because it's on the selectmen's agenda for.
And now, the question is, how in the world did the 6 months residency requirement get out of the regulations? Nobody can kind of figure that one out. But I found the ones that were amended in 2005 are the most recent ones that I can find that has a 6-month residency requirement. So how that got taken out of the regs after 2005, I don't know.
And everybody I've talked to thought it was in there, and I just said, well, it's not.
It's not, and you can't enforce anything if it's not in the regulations.
True.
So do we want to put this back?
So where it would have to go is in the definitions, under,
If it was in the regulations and then it was never voted to be taken out, just because it didn't get copied and pasted over, could it still be a regulation?
Well, I vaguely remember a problem with, somebody was saying that that was not illegal, it was not legal to require a, Dana?
Oh, they did it in Orleans and Eastham too.
They did what?
And, yeah, and it got challenged and it was illegal. In Orleans and Eastham, they took it out because when a guy becomes a resident, he's a resident. He has full right of any resident of the town. He has a right to vote, he has a right to do everything else, so they figured he had a right to go shellfishing too. It got taken to court. In Orleans and Eastham it did. So then they took it out, and that's when they did the domicile thing.
that's what we're talking about, is
That's,
domicile.
but before they didn't have,
I see
they
what
had
you're
so then they did domicile, you know what I mean? And that's how they did.
Yeah.
And what they did in Orleans and Eastham, which is kind of what you did here too, to avoid that, is you could only get your license up until April, the end of April,
Right,
which you've got a stipulation of when you can get your license too.
right.
So if someone happens to come at, say, in June, theoretically, he wouldn't be able to get a license for a year, almost a year,
Yeah,
or until January, or whatever it comes into. That's how they took care of it in Orleans and Eastham, how you do here, right?
by adding the word domicile.
They did that in a time period. You used to be able to get a license anytime during the year. You could go in and get a license anytime during the year.
Right,
So that's how they kind of did that, to get control of it in those towns.
right.
So,
And I surveyed Mass Shellfish Officers Association, I think Chatham has 1 year, and I want to say that Eastham now has a 1-year domicile. I think it's a year, I'll have to ask Nicole again. And then Barnstable has a year for getting on a grant, and you have to have a 1-year domicile. So where we could do it is either in the definition of domiciled resident or in the definition of resident.
Right,
And then when it refers to it,
Yeah, it's in the back, we're under
Then-
definitions, right?
yeah, in the front, yeah.
but we also have to put it in the commercial permits, in the eligibility,
It's in there as domiciled resident,
but not for 6 months.
but the definition, it refers to the definition, so we have to
Right.
change the definition.
Right.
Let me see, where's that?
but I'm saying it right, but I still don't understand.
Hold on,
Talk
let me
to
get-
legal counsel before we start changing that back.
Domicile resident says C resident. What the heck is resident? Resident, declared resident of the town of Wellfleet, written proof that Wellfleet is the domicile as well as the legal resident of the applicant. Shall be required to satisfaction of the Shellfish Constable, Board of Selectmen. Proof of legal residence may include voter registration, But what I'm saying is so that's in here.
Yeah, so we don't need to change it anywhere in the regs, because the regs say, see the definition, so we just need to change the definition.
Right, but we need to change to 6 months or a year.
Right.
Right, that's what we need to change.
So we make somebody wait a year once they move here to get a license?
See, I don't think that's great.
It's up to you to make a
You don't think
recommendation.
that's
I don't think that's proper. I think that once you're a domiciled resident here, you either are or you aren't.
Yeah, the problem is, like, the reason Chatham did it is because they had 12 guys from Barnstable move in, because they had a bumper crop of seed, and it was in October. And by April, they had their license, when that stuff was coming to size, and they went to town on it. They all were like big-time diggers.
But did they move afterwards or what?
After a couple of years, they were gone. But yeah, but I'd be saying, if we ever had a giant, like, crop of oysters, someone could move in October. But, you
Yeah,
know,
but how are you gonna move in without, you know, it's probably gonna be.
Well, that's what happened with the base golfs, that's why we changed this, because we didn't want the guys that weren't true commercial fishermen coming in at the last minute and buying their licenses when they realized there was gonna be a good crop of base golfs and dropping their carpentry and their electrician jobs and all that stuff and jumping on and rigging out little boats and then wiping out the base golfs and leaving the guys that had waited for that with nothing. So, I mean, I would like to see personally the 6-month domicile resident back on the books. Dana?
I can tell you exactly how it happened in East Hampton, Orleans, what the challenge. We had a great big base golf season in Pleasant Bay. And Elmer Coster and a few of them didn't have licenses. They challenged that. Because, you know, they challenged that, the time and all that stuff, and they found out that it was illegal, what they had. Then everybody got licenses. They came from everybody. So be sure when you put it in that it's legal, because it'll open it wide open. That's what happened to us. That's why we changed it to domicile and all that.
Right.
We had lawyers there and everything. It opened it wide open. And we had tons of people coming on our base golf day.
And the problem
And it was in Pleasant Bay, yes. That's what happened.
But apparently other towns are
Yeah,
doing
domicile
resident requirement. So shall we just have you check that out with check it out with the lawyer
think
before
we
we
should
have
write
that in?
I think we should
Write
write
it?
it so that they
And then
can,
run
then I
by
have
them?
something to run by the lawyer, yeah.
Okay. Did we want to run by 6 months or a year?
6 months.
6 months? Okay, so the old one, we could just go back to the old one. It used to be under 4.1.1. A commercial permit may be issued to any person 14 years of age or older who has been a bona fide domicile resident, see definition, of the town of Wellfleet for the immediate past 6 months or more. Residents age 14 through 16 may be issued to a commercial permit will be revoked if the holder ceases to be a bona fide domicile resident of the town of Wellfleet. Commercial permits will not be issued to unnaturalized foreign-born persons who have not resided in Barnstable County for at least 5 years. So it's, if we want to go back to the old reg as written,
Yeah.
it might be the easiest route to take, middle of the page.
What are we trying to prevent? We're trying to prevent kind of good crop. People
Trying to-
coming in.
Jumping in.
Right.
Well, why don't we state something like 1 year domicile, you got a limit. You got a catch limit.
What do you mean?
You can take 1 bushel, that's it. If you want a year, 1 year.
Well, because once you have a commercial permit, you've got a commercial permit. You can't sort of issue a commercial permit that's not a commercial permit, that's different than everyone else's.
Yeah,
But
that would-
They
I'd
do
never
that
apply.
in,
No.
might be Swansea. In Swansea, the first year you're only allowed to harvest cohots.
Yeah, right.
What about the attorney? I mean, you're trying to prevent somebody from coming in, taking their catch, and then leaving 2 years out, year out.
Well, in a way, Wellfleet has that because you can only get your license till what? The end of January? Is that what it is? So a lot of people would come in the spring and get it. Like in Chatham, you can get it till May 1st. We already got that protected. If it shuts down in January.
There should be a definition of domicile in there, though, I think, you know, that says what that means.
I thought we did, I thought we just discussed, we do have a
You got a
definition
definition.
of domicile in here.
We're gonna leave our old
Let's
definition.
poll the audience.
Definition.
I got a question. Why can't
Ah.
you put a stipulation in there for the amount of time that that person is actively living in the town? Like, meaning you have to actually live in this town 9 months out of the year or something. As a stipulation to the license, rather than the time limit on whether you can start fishing or not. Be more focused on whether this person jumps from property to property, whether they're actually living in this town. I mean, because this is a resource for the people who need it.
Right. Well, I mean, is that,
What's the legality of that?
that's covered under domicile resident though. Because your domicile residence is where you pay all your taxes, where your vehicles are all registered, where you sleep.
True, but
where
what
you-
I'm saying is like active residency, like actual time frame on that person having to be
Yeah,
in
it
town.
seems, it might be really hard to
Enforce.
you know, because
Right.
once they're a
Like you
resident,
said,
Didn't we decide?
That's illegal, right?
Arbiter of that? Isn't she the one that's figuring
Wasn't,
that
this,
out?
this was a reg, right?
Yeah.
This is a regulation, like there's a 6-month domicile,
No, it had been taken out.
but it was, right?
It was.
So,
So who took it out? That's my question.
You
don't know.
I have a
You
feeling
It got
the lawyer-
challenged
I have a
and
feeling
was
the lawyer
taken out.
took it out.
so why don't, if it was a regulation and then it got taken out from a lawyer, why don't we just check to see if it was taken out from a lawyer? And if it was taken out, then, you know, obviously we can't do that. And if it wasn't, then you can do that, and then we should just come back and talk about it again, you know?
Jeannie Mac was absolutely flabbergasted that it wasn't in there. She always thought it was, she doesn't, I mean, she's been here 18
We
years.
don't
She
follow
doesn't
up. Well,
know.
if we can't, but we can't do anything about it now because we, so.
Agree, but she would know if the lawyer had challenged it, because she's the one who has to publish them.
So we could ask her and
Do
then
the
come back.
hearing.
The other
Yeah,
thing
she
you just
doesn't know.
go, you go
I
back,
asked
figure
her.
out when it was taken out, when the new regs were published, and just go to the meeting minutes
Yeah.
before that and see what happened. It must have been discussed. It did just happen by accident.
Well, that's what she thinks might have happened, just copy and, when that big reg rewrite happened, she thinks maybe when all the copying and pasting that happened, it dropped out. She doesn't remember anything formal.
So, do you want to just, do you want me to just look into this and we'll bring it back at the next meeting?
Yeah.
Look into trying to figure out
yes.
if it's legal, if it's, when it got dropped out. And if we can just put it back in the way it is for 6 months. And then we'll just bring it up at the next meeting so we can keep moving on here and get more
But
information.
Is it true, like what Brett said, that the dates when you can get the permit prevent any issues really anyway? I mean, are we having issues?
You get it right by January.
Who's gonna take advantage of this?
Were you finding issues, Nancy, with people that were, it was hard to identify that they
There was a
actually lived
rush,
here?
there was a rush this year, there was a rush this year on people who had just moved here. And that's what caught Jean Mac's eye. She came to me saying, something ain't right.
Uh-huh.
It's not in the
Commercial
rights, I
permits.
don't know why. But there's probably half dozen or more people that just moved here.
We had the past 3 years were wicked good years oyster. So it's like you could make a, you know, and now,
So word travels fast.
yeah, and people hear about what we're doing and they're like, I want that too, so.
And I'm not saying that they're, you know, it's just, there was a number of people who had just changed their residency, just changed their domicile. And so Jean came to me and said, I think there's something wrong. Why don't we have the 6 months in the rights? I'm like, I don't know.
Dana, I'm sorry.
One more question. If you're gonna do that, right, say somebody moves here in February, do they have to wait a year and a half, or are you gonna give them the license in 6 months? So you're gonna have another problem with that, because you say you can only get your, you're gonna want it 2 ways. So
Right.
you're gonna have to have it only 1 way. If you did that, then they'll be able to get their license year round.
You could rewrite the regulations.
No, if you moved here in February, you'd just be out of luck for that.
For a year and a half, they'd challenge that if they
Yeah.
had a second.
Yeah.
That would be
Well,
okay
Frank-
though.
First of all of this is challengeable depending on who's spending the money.
Right.
So we don't have to worry about that, in my opinion. Let it fly and see what happens, number one. Number two, I would have a tendency to look back to see whether or not, when the rules were adopted and amended, whether it got dropped off when it went to vote, or whether it got dropped off in the printing. Because this rule could still be in effect. Just because it's not printed in our rule book, if it was not done away with, it still has the same power. So I would think through Jeannie Mac or whatever, if you pulled out the original vote for that, when you say it vanished, before I deal with any of it, because you may find that that rule is still active, even though it's not printed.
That's what I was saying, like, we should just look into this and then table it and come back and be like, oh, it is a reg, or it's not a reg, and then we can just.
Yeah, we talked about it
move
at
on,
a Shellfish
you know?
meeting.
So
4
if it's
years
not
ago.
in the meeting minutes and it hasn't been approved by the Board of Selectmen, then it was
So we
never
need to go through the
changed.
minutes.
I would look at it from the opposite thing. If it was in the original rules and they didn't change it, it would still stand.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean,
But you would look
it's-
through the Board of Selectmen minutes, and you would, and if the selectmen never voted to take it out, then they have to vote on every regulation change.
That's correct, and it's a typo and needs to go back in the rules.
Yeah.
Right.
Would it be easier for us to just recommend it, you can clear it with a lawyer, and then if it's good, we can just go ahead with it?
I disagree. If it's already there, then you don't have to worry about it.
Well, either, we should look at both, I think.
Okay, so we're gonna we'll look at everything and bring it back up to the next meeting.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Sounds good? We can keep moving
Moving
on
right
and
along.
do our research. Okay, so now we're gonna come up to some really interesting stuff. We need to talk about the draggers, because there's kind of like the same thing as with this regulation. There's a lot of supposed regulations in the world of draggers that I think I kind of find, I think a lot of them were guys that agreed this is the best way we should do things, and let's just stick together and do it this way. So it kind of became like an unwritten reg, like it was always 3-inch ring for oysters and an 1.5-inch ring for cohogs, and it's not in the regs, but that's kind of like the way that the guys did it. And apparently now, things have changed to the point where people kind of want to see something in black and white and on paper in order to enforce it. It's not like the old days when people kind of enforced themselves, you know what I mean? So, do you want to just go over this, Nancy? Want to start at the beginning on this
Yeah, so
document? or-
the main thing that I want to say is that this discussion happened because of what Barbara was talking about, but it also happened because some fishermen were concerned and came to me to express their concern. And I am happy that people feel comfortable enough talking to me that they can express concerns. And I would hope in the future, if you had any concerns at all, whatever they would be, you would know that we would be a good place to come, and then we will create community discussion around it. I am not somebody who likes to work as a top-down manager. I want to work together, and I love to try and build consensus with fishermen to achieve the sustainability of the fishery and profitable fisheries. That's the balance that I'm looking for. And so with this discussion tonight, I'm really looking for a community conversation. I'm not looking to make any immediate changes necessarily. I just want to hear what people have to say and hear what people's concerns might be. One of the concerns was the types of gear, and the other is the resource of blood clams. That there's a lot more boats working the harbor, the limits are high, and a lot's coming out. And we have a lot of other boats that will be beginning to work in the harbor. And I just did my report, and just in 1 month, you know, the amount of blood clams coming out, it doubled or tripled in 1 month because there's a lot of boats working. I don't have any problems with this. We are inspecting, we are enforcing, things are going well, but I do want to pay attention to the people who are out there every day, which I'm not, and I want to hear what they have to say. And so I look to all of you to give me your feedback and to talk about potential options and hear, are other people concerned or not? So some of the things, and I just highlighted it in here, what the limits are, and then for the different species. And then there has been discussion, as Barbara was saying, about gear and some like specifications for gear, which we don't have a lot of in here, frankly. And then some of the bycatch rules. So I guess I would open it up to hear from people. If anybody is concerned about the resource of blood clams, what people think about potentials to be considered for gear configurations, things that they have known to be true forever but aren't in the regs and should be. This is an information gathering session.
Gotta get back there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hey, Barbara, I have a question, or for Nancy or whoever. In the regs for 8.2, it says one drag or dredge at a time. I thought in the old regs, we were allowed to have up to 48 inches or 50 inches and do multiple drags if they were hand drags, as long as they did not go over that 50 inches. That way, us smaller guys in skiffs, if we were hauling drags by hand, we could have 2 drags, 2 2-foot drags that went up to 4 feet. As long as there was no mechanization of it, as long as it was just a hand drag.
I've never heard anything about that personally. I don't know if anyone else has heard
It's the way it used to be.
anything about
It's the way it used to be in the old days. If you wanted to drag anything you want, as long as you pulled it over the rail by hand, nobody ever complained about it.
As long as you maintain the standardization of the maximum.
Yeah, the width.
Yeah, because there's no way that in a skiff you can haul back a 4-foot drag by hand. 2 little 2-footers you can pull back by hand. So
Michael, do you remember anything about that?
Really, in regards to baseball,
Do we have anyone that's looking to handhaul gear?
I do.
do it all the time. Done it my whole life.
I thought it was in the regulations already.
No.
Well, I don't even see a problem with that. If you're not going over the maximum amount, what difference does it make?
Doesn't make any.
Doesn't matter.
People always did it for years in
Yeah, yeah.
cities. And in Chatham, I think they still do. You know, I mean, that's how it's done.
This regulation would do away with it.
Well, this one here says, one drag dredge at a time. No vessel which operates a drag or dredge shall have more than one drag or dredge in the water in use at any time.
Do away with it.
So it would do away with the
Um,
hand drags.
Well, but we don't want boats that are using, winches to be dragging a bunch of rakes at once. Should we put something about mechanized or about haulers? Or about, or just add unless dredges are hand hauled?
Say multiple rakes, as long as it's under 4 feet or 50 inches, whatever the rules.
Total.
As long as it's by hand. As long as it's under what the regs are for inches, then what does it matter whether it's mechanized or not?
Well, then it would take one douchebag or one jerk
Yes.
to be like, tow two
Helen?
2-foot dredges. Like, I guess it wouldn't really matter.
It wouldn't really matter though. I mean, it's okay, let them. As long as they're not towing 2 8-inch drags.
That's a wicked good idea, yeah.
You wouldn't do that if
You would not, you wouldn't do that.
Exactly, I mean, if you're a dragger, you want to tow one drag. 2 just makes a haul back a lot more complicated.
So you don't think that a bunch of guys are gonna suddenly start
No.
trying to tow 2 rakes around the harbor?
As long as you have the regs, you can't tow more than 4 feet in the water. Can't tow, or 50 inches, I'm sorry.
This is a non-problem.
Yeah, that won't work.
So this is a
It's a
non-problem?
non.
I don't think anybody's set up in the harbor to even tow 2 drags.
Yeah, it's just to protect us, younger kids that have been doing it already, because that's how it used to be. Just because it doesn't take any money for us to get in a skip and go with cheap little hand rigs that you can haul together, as long as they're under the 4 feet maximum or 50-inch maximum. All it costs is us sleeping well at night because we're tired.
Right.
There's an inherent inefficiency built into it that I think.
It doesn't go fast at all.
And then there's a youth thing that,
Yeah.
I think there's exactly one person in this room who can do it. So you, Jake.
We all started somewhere, though.
Yeah.
We all started somewhere, you can remember that.
Document that you've been doing it, and if it ever comes up, you've been doing it since 1987, or however long you've been doing it, as long as you've got records, it's being done.
If somebody wants to haul a rake by hand, by God, let them.
Yeah, I might be a problem when there isn't one, I think.
Yep.
I'm gonna feel more comfortable if it's a regulation, sorry, but I'm not gonna be like, 'cause then, if it's not me the next time, right?
Yeah,
Also, what do you want to do?
Yeah, I'm not gonna set somebody up for failure like that.
So you can take out this regulation regulation, and then we just gotta add that the combined size of the two.
Shall not exceed 50 inches or something like that.
Yeah.
You want to do it?
So maybe 8.2 becomes hand dragging or something.
Non-mechanic, or, yeah, like.
Hand dragging. It's not gonna, it's just a
And someone's
weekend.
gonna make a rig with a bicycle.
Yeah, that's right.
Or we just take it out and just go the 8.3, the size of the drag or dredge. The drag or dredge without teeth having, having a width greater than 50 inches shall be used in Wealthy Harbor. Or,
No, who has
Dredges.
Yeah, it had to, you had to be specific, and only one at a time.
pardon?
Just one.
Drag or dredges, so that way then you're, it's more than one dredge.
Use total length.
Total length.
Dragger
Right,
dredges,
total length.
Total length is what you're looking at.
Yeah.
Pair them up, if Nancy goes down and puts two of them side by side and measure them, they're over the 50 inches, you're in violation.
So get rid of 8.2 and amend
Pretty simple.
8.3.
So I might ask, like, can I take what I'm hearing and put it into something that I think with our team,
Yeah.
we think is enforceable and clear, and then bring it back to you guys?
Great, yeah,
Okay,
sounds
yeah.
good.
so here's that, 8.2.
So, okay.
I see about that, I'm just gonna watch.
I want to come.
Because I know that the selectmen and the secretaries always like it if we come up with all the amendments in a package instead of amendment at every single selectmen's meeting.
Yeah, I really.
So it'd be nice if we could get, is there anything we need amended to go to the next selectmen's meeting? Or do you think we can just keep working this down the line? So,
At the next selectmen's meeting, it will be the points, it'll be map number 5 points. I changed, as you directed me to, all of the shellfishing point, the GPS codes from degrees to decimals. So that's on the next selectmen's agenda already. It will be advertised as a public hearing. And then the domicile was going to be on there, but I will take that off. So why don't we work on a couple of...
On the domicile and the...
Yep, so let's look at another package that we can do maybe at the July meeting. Because we'll have the June, so it's May, we'll have a June Shellfish Advisory meeting where I can present it and you guys can vote. And then we'll take it to a July Selectmen's meeting. Because
Okay,
none of this is urgent,
is
right?
urgent.
And what's in the regs right now is going to stand in the regs. Okay, I'm just going to take it from there.
Floodplains, what was said about that next year?
Well, we were kind of talking about that, right, Nancy? I mean, we haven't gotten that far yet.
Right.
First, we're doing the
There's no
dredge.
regulations for floodplains, right?
There are.
We have regulations.
The town,
does
the
not.
state does not.
That's
We made our own,
Yes, we did.
which was pretty liberal from what I remember, right?
Mhm.
All right.
It's 10 bushels per license per boat, no more than 20 per boat. So you can have 3 licenses in it.
All right.
But you can have 2 licenses on a boat, and it's 20.
Also, the question is, who's watching the floodplain population, is what's happening, because, you know.
Well, I think the guys that are, how are the guys that are fishing are the ones that we want to hear from.
We're watching very closely. We've seen more seed every year. There's not an issue with the volume of product out there. I think the issue that needs to be addressed is the drags have not been standardized to what you are going to be directed your fishery at. Meaning that if I use a 2-inch bag, I'm using a 2-inch bag. Well, if somebody sees what I do and they're not keeping up, they decide to use a smaller ring and collect smaller clams. That presents a problem with sustainability.
Probably have like a reg for like 2-inch rings on oyster dredges.
You should have a 2-inch ring reg on it
On oyster
for blood
dredges.
clams.
For blood, yeah.
And a directed rate, I feel the only directed rate you should really be using is something that only scoops across the top, in a baseball rake or an oyster rake. If you're using a quahog rake, that's really designed to be 7 inches down and pulling things up. Well, these don't live down, they live right on top of the water. So,
Right. Unfortunately, I believe the 2 guys that are really important to have on this discussion are both in the hospital tonight, from what I understand. Both have seriously medical conditions, and that's Gary and Andy. And I really don't think it's fair for us to go tweak and reg, because the regs, the way we're looking at it, there's what's comfortable in a boat the size that you guys own, And then there's what works on the boat, the more of a mosquito fleet-sized boat.
So I wouldn't say though,
What
because like
question are
a
you-
cohog, I would say like a cohog dredge though is like,
They're
I mean,
little-
they can still use their.
Yeah, we're not looking to.
They can keep their
Yeah,
bag.
they-
We want to regulate the people who are going to get 20 bags or 10 bags. We want to make sure that they're using the
Right,
proper
well,
gear and taking the proper
Mike's just saying that
size.
he doesn't want to use a 1.5 inch ring, he wants them to go.
No,
No, no,
They
no,
want them
I'm
to.
saying for a directed,
David, I'm sorry, Michael, I'm sorry.
we should standardize the reg on it.
He's
I mean,
saying
if you're going to be a person
yeah.
who's directly targeting these things.
What he's saying is like, let them do their thing, like let them have their bags, you know, and like if you're fishing for, like, if you're using an oyster dredge to catch blood clams and oysters, use a 2-inch ring.
But then you have, so then you come
That
up with a
protects the
different,
seed, that
different
releases it
bag
back
limit
into the
than how many you can keep.
But,
No,
Well, if you're not directed fishery at them, and it's an incidental catch, is that what you're saying? That the blood clams would be an incidental catch?
What I'm saying,
Or cohog.
even to go on further with that, as far as a bycatch goes, I feel like it should be increased for those people. I feel it should be at a minimum 50%, if not, you know what I mean, like something that's proportionate to their catch, but give them room to make money on this, you know?
you know what, yeah.
so the guys that, this is what's got me so confused, so the guys that are using oyster rakes are using a traditional oyster rake with a
With
3 inch
2-inch
ring.
ring.
2-inch rings.
Okay, I thought oyster rakes thought the
No, we
rakes
bring it with
that
a
aren't
3-inch.
really there.
We've never used a 3-inch ring.
You don't, never.
Never. That's,
Always
you're
been-
thinking sea salt.
Yeah, okay, no, I'm trying to get this, I'm trying to make it sound.
No, the diamond would be about
Well,
6
no,
inches anyway.
that
so
would be perfect.
It wouldn't work.
Okay, so it's a
But
2 inch ring.
we're finding that the 2-inch ring retains a very large marketable size and mature size for the majority part.
So
So
you-
what we're taking is the mature product that's literally within the year going to die. I mean, I can bring you guys out there and show you entire toes where you haul back and think it's all big, nice golf ball blood clams, and they're all dead and contributing black mayonnaise to the tide. This is not something we should regulate the catch on, because
Right.
all we're doing is letting them die. I mean, they don't live long like a cohog or an oyster does. They're not going to sit here for 5-6 years down the line. A couple of years, a couple of sets later, they're dead, and they're contributing to our problem then.
The study that I read says that they have an average lifespan of 6 years.
6 years.
That's the maximum.
They-
Information's from
they
Florida,
spawn
it's
at 8
shaky.
months.
The theory, the hatchery would consider a custom spawn of them. So they have the ability to propagate it, and then the state takes a position that they're invasive and that they're there in the place, you know, excluding cohogs from the farm.
They are.
Yeah.
They're causing cohogs to grow slower underneath, and areas that have been traditionally oyster toes have been taken over by them, and the oysters can't return into the environment because there's no room for them there. The cohogs underneath them are growing slow, if not dying.
All of this, you know, I mean, there's lots of ideas and stuff. I've only been doing the blood clam thing for, well, not that long. There seems to be a lot of dead ones, but also the real small ones, doesn't make sense to take them. And they're the ones that are washing through, and we're seeing lots of, you know, I'm seeing a biomass of these things. It sucks that a lot of the bigger ones died, but the little ones, my guys don't even, you know, just because it doesn't make sense to me, something that can be almost the size of a baseball. If you're taking it that small, I mean, you don't have to be a scientist to figure that you are not doing any good to this species. There's not a rule on this yet, but if they're like that, I mean, how many of those do you need that, you know, you can tell when it's counterproductive. And we know that because we're, you know, I'm in it for keeps, and we all are. So there's really, without even a size limit, there's so much gray area with this blood clam thing, and I think Mikey, perhaps you, any other blood clam guy knows more about it. And even as far as the cohoggers catching them, I mean, if you're lucky enough to get a few blood clams while you're cohogging, of course you're going to want to keep them. I wouldn't even say it's a bycatch. They're there, get them. You know, that's kind of how it is. I mean, so those guys, take all you want, and good luck in the hospital. I mean, that's how it is.
Think about it, they're using 9-10-inch blades.
Yeah.
They're not killing it.
We're not concerned about those guys so much, but the people
No,
who are
It's more like if somebody
targeted.
really like doesn't know what they're doing, or
Right.
they really are like, they want to like kill it because there is no regulation on it, like, they could, like, I was
It's
selling
still-
blood clams today, and somebody was like, he's like, I like yours, you don't bring the small stuff in. He's like, it's really hard for me to weigh out 25 pound bags when somebody's selling me blood clams the size of my thumbnail. And I'm like, whoever's doing that is taking the resource, you know? So if
Right.
you just make a simple town reg, that's like, just make us use 2-inch rings on an oyster dredge to catch plate clams, it just eliminates that. Right.
But once your bag gets clogged up, you get all sizes anyway.
Little ones, if you had your guys.
It would be
vigorously save
ridiculous.
little ones, at the end of it, you'd have a basket and everybody would be pooped saving those tiny ones. And you wouldn't get, just doesn't, for a zillion ways, it doesn't make sense. So I don't think it's really, that's kind of self-policing at this part from what I can see. And your accounts, your places where you're selling these, we already get enough blood clam complaints because of possible dead ones. We're shaking them, we're rattling them, we're throwing them from the table down, and you be as hard as you can on them because they're breaking open with sand, and we've gotten complaints. And so now we're doing everything we can to weed those ones out and have our product be the best product out there. So, and it's not going to be that way if you're putting, who could possibly want one that's thumbnail size? I don't know exactly what they do with them. I've eaten them on the half shell. I've served them to friends. Nobody wants them. I'm not going to serve them to friends anymore. Nobody really likes them here. They leave them there. So I imagine wherever they're going, when they have been.
Is there anybody with 1.5-inch rings on oyster rig?
No.
No. That's
That's what we're trying to say.
That would just be a sin. You just have too much of a.
as far back as I can remember, it's 1.5 for cohorts.
2-inch for.
Yeah.
You'd have too much of that, a mess, if you didn't have that small of a oyster bag, I believe.
So you just want it to be a reg, 2 inches?
Yeah,
on
you
oyster
don't have to go
dredge.
so far into depth. I thought about how many links you could put on the front, standardizing no more than 3 and no more than 2 on the back. You want to let more stuff rinse out, if that's your concern. It's also so counterproductive to have a muddy pile on deck. I don't know if you ever picked with one, Barbara, but it's like, I can go through a tow in 10 minutes. I want to make 10-minute tows and keep my schedule. Well, if I get a muddy pile, I'm going to spend 25 minutes on that just trying to get through it. And I'm going to be wiped out, and it's for what? Nothing. So there's no benefit to trying to sand up. It's one of those things we avoid as much as possible.
No, so what do we want a 2-inch ring size on a toothed reg.
And
If you
keep
just make
the
it a
tooth
rag.
bar the same as the oyster drag, so there's no,
Right.
miscommunication over what drag you're using, you know what I mean? That way somebody can't just use a smaller tooth scale and get away with it.
Do you think it'd be easier just to regulate the size of the blood clam?
No.
Why?
Because we don't have a gauge, we have no study done
There's
on
like
it.
tons of different sizes too. It's like, and to handle all those individually.
Yeah, you're talking about something that's gonna be like,
That would probably happen.
I think a count next to the legal limit, right, think about 800 of them.
Yes.
Pretty much the
If
same
it's a
thing.
2-inch
Like,
ring, you
smart ring,
It would be like bull rigging your clam run and measuring every single.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
sure.
Are you
It'd be so
selling with
counterproductive.
carbuncles and all that crap on them? Because they
Yeah,
usually have all kinds of crap on them.
Every one of those gotta go.
So you're having to cull every one of those
Yes.
blood clams.
Read it.
Well, the majority of them are clean. It's like you get one with a jingle shell here and there, if that's the area you're fishing in. In certain areas you get more crap than other areas.
They pay a lot of money for them, they don't wanna buy stuff they can't sell.
Yeah, I know. I used to get them on the tennis island, but there's I can't find any out there anymore.
Are there
The
guys?
ice just took them out somewhere. See ya.
The ice didn't, this I do know, because I was doing a little bit before the ice, and the ice did incredible damage to that resource.
Yeah.
All in there, all on the east side, off of the grants and stuff. Things were altogether different, and then it just seemed, I was just like, wow. And then after the ice, it all changed, and everybody noticed that. In half or worse. Death and disappearance, just gone. So even the deep water.
Sounds like a book.
Is this fishery the kind of fishery that's just gonna go away?
No,
When did
it's
this
not
start?
going
When
away.
did this start?
They've always
The
been here.
Asian markets are really good for this.
I'm not talking about the market to buy the clam, I'm talking about in Wellfleet Harbor, are they just gonna go away? When, are they cyclical? No,
They've
not
been
like that.
here as long as I've been alive, and
It
the
won't be
generation
because of
before
us.
that, they're not gonna be wiped out.
It won't be because of us. If Mother
All right.
Nature takes them, then that can happen.
The only other thing that I was thinking would be so I agree with everything that these guys said too, and obviously we're getting people from Eastham to Wellfleet, you know what I mean, to catch these things. So like what I was thinking was, in order to make, like, sort of make it so that people from other towns are, like, they're benefiting from our resource by working on our boats. And then they can also tell other people what we're doing too. But they don't need anything to work in Wellfleet. So like we all need commercial permits in Wellfleet to catch blood clams, but somebody from Eastham can come and work on my boat and they still get to benefit from our resource. So
You can hire anyone as a deckhand and pay them per hour. They're
But-
not selling the product. It's not their transaction card. They're just an employee.
that's right. So, but it's not, you don't really get paid by app, but what you're doing is you're taking a wild resource. It's not like working on your grant. It's taking something from our town,
Right.
our resource, that they didn't put anything into. They're just a dude on deck.
Right.
And
So you think there should be a rule that says anyone on deck or fishing on any boat in the town of Wellfleet needs to have a commercial permit?
or at least be from Wellfleet.
No. No, we gotta stick up for deckhands here.
What do you mean?
Deckhands, a boat operator.
What do you mean? And a deckhand, I'm just saying from other towns. I wouldn't say like a dude from Wellfleet. I mean, they absolutely should be able to run somebody else's boat because that's how they learn from somebody who taught them, and they get to like do it the right way, and then they eventually will get their own boat. That's like the right way. But like you can't have somebody from another town consistently taking something from our town's resource, like your resource, that you paid your commercial permit for nothing.
Yeah, so you're saying somebody has a boat with a license and somebody runs that boat, goes out fishing, sells it under that person's license?
No, not even that. I mean, that also does happen, but yes.
If you're
But-
if you're captaining a boat for somebody, you still need to have a Wellfleet commercial shellfish.
But say like if you had a boat and I had a boat and I wanted somebody, like I wanted you to run it, but you don't know how to run the boat.
Yeah.
So I could get somebody who does know how to run the boat from another town to take that boat and make some decent
Under a
money.
license?
Under Jake's license.
No, see,
No, you
that's
can't.
can't.
That was closed up.
No, we're talking about some guy
But that
that used to
happens.
go fishing from Eastham on deck.
As a paid.
There's
deckhand.
nothing wrong with that, I think.
But he shouldn't be running the boat.
No.
So
No.
what happens when that does happen? Or what
That's
happens?
it should be illegal.
They roll over in the harbor.
And also what happens when a dude from, like, how come, so I should be able to go to
That's
Jack
what happened.
and go drag on their boats and take it from their resource?
Barbara,
I think you
I'm sorry.
can, because I took,
I'm sorry. So at the table, there are only 2 people left at the table who went over this with a fine-tooth comb, and me in the room, okay?
Right.
We did blood clams like this with a fine-tooth comb, a lot. It isn't 10 bushels per person on the boat. It's 10 bushels per permit holder.
Yeah, I know.
So
That's
you
not
can
what I'm
have,
talking about.
no, I know, but you can have as many employees from God only knows where on the boat with you if they're your registered employees. They can't take it back with them. They can't sell it. They
Maybe
don't-
people just, that are on vacation, my daughter's friends, things like that. So there'll be gray area with all that.
Yeah.
And they're not working, but they.
Yeah, excuse me, but it doesn't matter, because they can be there, they can be having fun, they can be employees, but it's only the permit holder that gets the catch limit. Nobody else can take anything home, except the permit holder, am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, well,
Dave, I
to
get what you're
protect
saying,
us,
but
we have already here, the owner operator of a vessel engaged in commercial shellfishing in the waters of the town involving the use of a drag, dredge, or other mobile gear shall hold a valid town of Wellfleet commercial shellfish permit. And the vessels must be registered or documented. Any vessel used for commercial shellfishing in the waters of the town employing over the side a drag, dredge, or other gear designed for the taking of shellfish must be registered and/or documented as having Wellfleet as a port of origin. The owner of the said vessel found in violation of this regulation shall be fined for each violation. So the vessel has to be from Wellfleet, and the captain has to have a commercial shellfish permit.
You can hire people.
And does the boat owner have a permit? Because that should be addressed, because that leaves a loophole.
The boat owner, the
Yes.
owner or operator
Yes.
of a vessel
Operator.
engaged in commercial shellfishing
Has to have a
has
permit.
to have a,
Yes.
has to have a
So
permit.
how will it be enforced if somebody from Eastham is running a boat and
That's
They shouldn't be
illegal.
running about
They
it.
shouldn't be.
And that means that we.
Are you
find out
seeing this
about that?
happen?
That's
They
it.
can
It
be
had
on
its
the-
agenda.
They can be on the boat counting clams. I mean, if you want to hire the guy to run your motor for you or something like that, I mean,
If they're running the boat, and they shouldn't be, we should be on it.
Mhm. Which we know was slipping through the cracks at one point.
And now Chris has been promoted to boat patrol, and we are making boats one of our primary focuses.
Right.
So I'm hoping that will change, that will not be occurring anymore.
So just so I'm clear, you could take your 10 bushels and out of that, have a guy from Eastham work on deck and pay him out of your 10 bushels,
yeah,
That's,
right?
Dave's
That
still saying
I'm saying-
that that's still taking our resource. He's saying that you should have, if you fish on a boat in Wellfleet, you should have a commercial shellfishing permit.
I do, but I didn't think about what Keith just said though, too. Like, his daughter is not from here.
But she doesn't have her.
But, yeah, but she doesn't have a.
But I take a
Oh,
lot
but
of
what if she's
people
from,
traditionally out fishing with us. We're 10 minutes from the dock. That's part of the ambassador.
yeah, but I mean, that's different
you
though.
know that you
But,
trust.
well, it's gray area with what you're talking about.
There is
And I
some,
think that all these rules should be about when there's deceit or something wrong, or there's just too many rules. I don't think that's something that's really gonna be a real headache or hassle, other than the one time that it did happen. I personally take Wellfleet guys, and they all have licenses, and the one that doesn't now, we assume.
You can't bring someone with you on the tide.
that's what I'm saying. That's it, so that's
But
like,
it's different, because there's a lot of hard work on a boat. It's harder, it's actually harder than going on the tide.
Yeah, we
Can you
need.
not
know what I
bring
mean?
somebody on the tide? Help us get a
Sometimes
bunch
you might
of.
have to do it.
No,
You can't.
you can bring a
Unless you mean it's
child.
a ball buster.
so what I'd like to get in my head is, okay, so the whole thing about the quahog rake versus the oyster rake versus the ring size versus the 20% bycatch. Well, the 20% bycatch is kind of thrown out the window, because whether you're using an oyster rake to catch blood clams or you're using a quahog rake to catch blood clams, you're not using a blood clam rake to catch blood clams.
Well, like,
but that's the thing, there is.
There is no such thing as
There
a
is no
blood
design
clam. So
rake.
who's to say that the guy using the oyster rake is using the right rake? And who's the guy to say that the guy using the quahog rake is using the right
I
rake?
would say just by principle of design, the oyster rake is designed to clean off the top and nothing below it. Whereas in a quahog rake is designed to go down deep and not get the stuff that's on top. So by principle alone, you're trying to get the species that's on top, correct, with blood clams. Why would you be using a rake that digs down to get it?
Because first they're gonna go
It's just-
deep
it's a more- it's a-
And underneath? Blood clams live under the surface as well.
But not like 7 inches down, and it's like just below this, just below the surface where oysters do too.
it would be counterproductive to try to catch blood clams with a quahog rake unless you're catching quahogs at the same time, because why dig all through the bottom, so it doesn't make sense. And, we can, kind of what's happening now is kind of what's working best, and,
Self-regulating.
I guess I would want to hear from the
From the
co-op.
co-op.
Yes,
No offense, but I would want to hear from them too.
certainly.
Stephen, you're good.
We've got 50 inches of teeth going over the bottom. We're not even concerned about the quahogs running in with blood clamps and just smashing all the hinges off.
What?
Yeah.
What-
Oyster drag smashes all the quahog hinges and kills all the quahogs. We're not even thinking about them, we're just thinking about what we're gonna put in our pocket at the end of the day.
So you're
How much
saying,
money we're gonna make.
so you're saying that oyster rake's big?
It's detrimental. It's our only target in blood clams.
We're not only targeting blood clams, so.
Well, it seems like that's what most of the catch is.
No.
If you look at it,
It all depends. I sort of pick different days.
But I'm just saying this.
You know, it's like.
If you want,
one side-
if you guys all want to split hairs about the quahog drag, the oyster drag and everything, how it's being used,
I think you should be
it's,
able to use whatever you want.
there you go.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Because if you're gonna go out there and kill quahogs with an oyster drag, you know, that was a big topic when they didn't want anybody using them in different places when the bay scallop season was over, during bay scallop season. They didn't want
Yeah.
anybody using a oyster drag to catch bay scallops.
So, Stephen, guess what? A while ago, we drafted a very nice section suggested by somebody in the community. 4.16, detrimental practices of harvesting prohibited. Sorry, Nancy.
I know.
Yeah.
Once you said it.
Yeah, no, what I mean is another thing to enforce. Yeah, in other words, if that's really happening, got to address it somehow. Not you, but generally.
Well, I hear somebody's gonna put a GoPro on their boat, so I'll be happy to get that footage.
Somebody what?
Is putting a GoPro.
Yeah,
so that would be great. I can look at the footage and we can make some, I'm just kidding.
okay. So we can move on. At this point then, do we want to just stick with things the way that they are now?
I mean, personally, we don't even want to limit on these things if we're taking a big enough size, but, you know, if we're gonna do anything, not doing anything is a good idea too.
Just on a side note, I saw Randy last week on a day that he came in. And I said, how's the bike clam going? He said, well, you know, I'm doing better with the cohogs today, this week. So it changes. You know, he had like 6 bags of cohogs and maybe one blood out. And in another month, it might turn around the other way.
He moves 30 feet, he gets
That's
out.
what it is. You move 30 feet, it's a whole different thing. I'm just sort of getting back figured out, but it's crazy how much it can change, just a few feet here and there. And I'm sure Jared has it down, and these guys have been doing it, you know, right on through. And they're probably the guys that really know, who could really offer a lot about what's really going on with these flood claims, too.
I can just say this, any rake used improperly is detrimental to whatever other species that's down there. So, what we try to use is the rake that's the least detrimental.
Yeah, this is just a discussion too, right? Like this isn't,
Yeah.
we're not.
The little boats are towing 9 inches.
We definitely don't have to do any, like everything.
25 bucks
fine.
Take them out.
Exactly. So,
Yeah, I would even say.
discussion was had.
Yeah, and I would say that, you know, I'm gonna look to you guys to keep us posted, right? And if you see things that look like it's going to affect your future,
To the
keep
big
talking.
There's a real small handful of people doing it. You guys are right there, and, you know, it's pretty, what you see is what's happening. And we'll see how it pans out.
Are all cohort breaks 9 inches across though?
No, I think it's maximum of 18 inches.
Yeah.
But that's,
Maximum of 18 inches on a cohort break?
Yep.
Just because that's the way they're built?
Well, just because they do harvest a chunk of the bottom, so they wanted to minimize the detriment.
Keith could tell if they want, I could just
Right.
not a big one.
I know, because they're hard to do, because I mean, they really big bottom.
It's just not in there.
So there's no problem right now.
Just so everybody understands,
isn't in there, believe it or not.
18 inches is not in the regs,
Always
so
thought
it's
it
not enforced.
I swear to you.
Yeah, you can do a bigger one, because Randy Williams up on the bank did a bigger one.
Everyone used
That,
18
a long time ago. But
It's kind of like the 2-inch oyster ring on your back.
was no excitement.
It's not in the regs, it's a lawfully common accepted practice.
We should put that in there.
I wouldn't say that. I don't want that. I don't want that in there. My phone can tell people. So, you know, I'll fight that. I'm not saying I'm rich.
No, 2-inch rings, right?
That's right, no, I said 2-inch rings.
I would be down for 2-inch rings.
Is there an actual cohort blade size? Like, is that in there?
The blade?
Cohort blade size?
There
No,
is
that's what I was
not.
asking.
Because, okay, there is, because I know at one point there was, and perhaps you guys remember years and years ago,
18.
there was a really big cohort dry dredge that Randy made for some wooden boat that Dan Rice made, and they used it for a while, probably in some pile somewhere. But I just was not sure if it went back to that standard 18.
We don't have any ring size or any,
Or no blade size?
no blade size in these
Okay,
regs,
that's-
no ring
that's what you
size in these
said. That's
regs,
what I'm curious about.
just limits.
Would you guys be opposed to doing a 2-inch ring size for oyster dredges?
too early for me to even
Think about it.
think about that. This is a discussion,
Yeah.
and I don't know that yet, to be honest.
Yeah.
You gotta figure out what you're trying to exclude, if you wanna do something like that, you know, like what they make turtle excluders for. You figure out what's gonna work for you, and what's not gonna take what you don't want, what's only gonna take the things that you do want. And if that's the 2-inch ring, if that's what you wanna go for, it's a recommendation, I don't think it needs to be a rule, right? And do we need to have it in a regulation that you shall use a 2-inch ring?
Well,
Dragging for
Well,
mud plants?
like we discussed.
It would be dumb.
It would be dumb to use anything else.
But
except for the Quahog guys want to stick with a ring.
Well, that's fine, you decide.
it would,
They have to catch little
it
ones.
Yeah.
would make a
And
standard,
Tony
but
blood clams, I mean, the co-op guys, they want a smaller bag to save small little nets because they're valuable. But a teeny tiny blood clam is not valuable because it
So there's
doesn't have
not a
the weight.
problem then,
So,
if the
yeah,
guys
it
are
isn't a
selling the
problem.
itty bitty stuff.
It really, is, to my opinion, isn't a problem, but I haven't been co-oping yet, so I'm really not sure. But it seems to me, things are kind of going smooth in the bag size thing because it's ineffective to kind of do it any other way. And, you know, that's kind of how it's working out.
So does everybody kind of agree in this room that we should just leave things the way they are right now?
Okay, the co-op guys aren't here, like you said, so they're not here and we.
But we're not changing anything, so nothing affects them.
Gary wants an 1.5-inch ring. That's all I know.
But he already has an 1.5-inch ring, right?
He wants to keep it. He
Yeah.
doesn't want it.
Ken just wanted to keep it. Ken, keep it.
All right. Nancy, how do you feel?
I'm glad we're talking.
Okay.
I wish they were here because it was their concerns that I wanted to make sure were addressed, but that will be
So
in the minutes.
we'll move it on
And
and
then we
then,
can have them look at it.
I've moved on. What is the very?
okay, so that's the next thing.
Do what they want.
It's been discussed, we're gonna move on. It's been discussed that, some people would like to see have more than one area to meet the trucks, or more than one, how do I say it? More than one transfer location for during the Vibrio season for oysters. And actually, Michael's the one that really, I mean, Michael and Chopper both would like to see, and some other people too, I'm sure, landings, because there's a really bad feeling, I'm just gonna throw this out there, there's a really bad feeling that some of the people that are working, that unload and meet their trucks on the ramp are not taking ice with them. And that there are certain amounts of oysters that are coming in and have been exposed for longer than they should because there's no ice brought to Egg Island, and because of the length of the time and the improbability that those oysters were underwater and then pulled up at the last minute and then zoomed to the pier into the back of a truck. Okay, so there's no ice going to Egg Island, and this is what a lot of these guys are concerned about. That the feeling is, if they don't have to use ice on Egg Island and they can meet a truck loaded with ice at the pier, and they've had to bring no ice with them, why can't other guys come from their site and drive to a parking lot to meet a truck within the 2-hour window and put theirs right on ice, i.e. Indian Neck or Powers Landing? Why should the guys that have the barges and are on Egg Island have this opportunity to not have to lug ice around them that the other guys don't have that are coming off grants via truck? Why is it legal to do it via boat and not via truck is the big question. Now, the reason that we put this, the whole variance for the town to be met at the pier was to keep everybody sort of in one place so we could keep an eye on making sure that everything was coming off, and the ramp is at the pier. So that's why I felt the ramp was included, because it's also at the pier under the watch of the Shellfish department, all in one area.
It's not just that. It's like when those trucks leave, the gurry just pours out of them. Do you want that at Mayo Beach, or do you want it, like, I think it's at the pier for that reason.
I don't know what type of truck you tow itself up. My truck, though.
Well, no, the stuff pours out of them.
No, they don't.
Wouldn't it just be easier to have another landing for, I mean, people could come off of the Herring River and sell, like, sell directly to a truck, or wouldn't it just be easier for people on where you guys are? Like, I mean, it would just be easier for oystermen to sell oysters, so why is that a bad thing?
Well, if we got rid of, the reason we had the variance was because if we didn't have it, then every truck would have to meet everybody at their landing. So when you hit the beach, you'd have to wait there for your truck or go directly to the dealer, and that's it. So the way it is now, we can all meet at the pier, and that's what the state allowed us to do.
Could we make it so that there would be 2 spots?
Helen?
Yeah, so I
Helen
was the
helped
one
write
talking.
this, draft this whole thing.
Yeah, I was the one talking with Michael Moore, who's the head of the agency within the Department of Health, who was very heavy about it. And his agency, his part of the Department of Health, is very different than the DMF. And they all had to work it out together. But they didn't like this at all.
The 2 spots?
They never almost give variances, quote unquote. No, they didn't even want to do it, okay? But we convinced them, and your Looney Tunes PR person, said, but this will make it better, and it does make it better. In other words, for enforcement. So we sold it to them, and we've been doing it now for a while, and we still have to renew those variances, right?
It's renewed through 2020.
Yeah, but that is an indication to you that unlike the DMF regs we can do, right? Where, they vet it, we vet it, select board passes it, it's good to go forever until it doesn't work. Oh no, this is a whole different thing. And if you are really interested in this, the way to do it would be to have probably Nancy contact Michael Moore directly with an idea and then work it from there. But
So what Chris Galacci said is that actually the Board of Selectmen, it's a Board of Selectmen request, and so the Board of Selectmen has to petition the Department of Public Health.
yes, except the way we did it, that was true last time, okay?
That's what Chris Galacci said
No,
last Thursday.
and he's right. No,
Okay.
and he's right. But the way we did it last time, and Andy Koch jump-started this, okay? And then I was asked to do it, but... Oh, yeah, I empty the room. I'm joking. Yeah, there was a civilized conversation with Mr. Moore first. Okay, and then it slowly happened, and the last step was the select board petitioned. Okay, right? In other words, we're thinking about this, and then you have to sell it with, here are the reasons for it, if you guys actually feel that you can do that in your department, and some are covered 2 spots. Because that was one of the selling points. Guess what? The department's right there. They can watch what's going on.
The EPOs love it too.
Yeah, when it's all in one place. So that's all I remember, that's all I know. He wasn't happy with the whole idea, though. I mean, it was no initially. We don't do this.
I'm sorry, Michael.
It's more of a common sense law than anything else. I come off the tide, the truck's there, I grab the ice from my truck in the parking lot. I run down to my grand, I throw the oysters into the truck, okay? Easy, right? I can't do that. I have to get the guy to drive all the way down to the pier, okay? We don't know what's gonna be at the pier. In this summertime, there might be a parade sometimes, there might be a square dance and other times. There's 1 million people at the ice cream stand. I mean, it takes some time to do that instead of me taking 5 minutes and putting it into the guy's truck at the parking lot. It's sometimes to get it there a half an hour, and maybe we gotta find a spot to drive around and look for the spot. So it's just a common sense law. I get the product, I get it faster in the truck, it's better for the product, and it goes right up the road. It's a really simple solution. You can have a couple landings to do this with. I have never met an EPO or a shellfish warden from the town of Wellfleet at the pier to see me unload my shellfish, and I've been there many a times. I have seen more shellfish wardens in Powers Landing parking lot line fetching the ice from the truck, okay? And then I'm coming back with the truck, and I said, hey, can I unload this? They says, no, you gotta go down the pier to do it. Do they follow me down to the pier to check my stuff out? No, because they're too busy going up the Heron River and doing their patrols or doing other things they have to do. It'd be easy just to say, hey, Johnny, check my stuff out. And it'd be great for him to say, just throw it in the truck. And it's over with, you know? But you can't do it because it's common sense to do it this way, to meet a truck at a pier, a parking lot where the guy's coming off with the shellfish. I mean, you can have a couple designated spots in the next great spot by the breakwater to catch those guys. If you want us to call up and say, hey, we're taking a load off approximately at 5 o'clock, you can see us down there. And we'll be glad to do that. But it's just more of a common sense law than anything else. It's for the product itself. You get a fresher product on that truck faster than anything else. So that's what I'm trying to say. And I'm sure the state would go for this. And then Slovakia, I'm sure, would go for this too. So, and it's up to the Board of Selectmen to say, hey, they're talking about the pier being congested. It's pretty congested in the summertime.
Ellen?
That's a good idea. Selling point. But how about not just Powers Landing, but what about, except it's not town-owned, the parking lot, the Fury's parking lot, Dunkin' Donuts parking lot? No?
No landing.
It's not a landing. No, I know. It has to be at the landing. I know. Yeah.
So that would.
Yeah.
I think there's ancillary factors to using a different land that before you petition the state, you should think of. I mean, the nice thing about the stuff going to the pier is it has left the point of landing and it's iced. We know it's iced. No one goes to the pier with shellfish without ice, and I've checked a lot of Egg Island catches. I feel pretty good about that. Do we need to look at some of that stuff at noontime on a -2.0? Yeah, I think we do. But, I mean, we'd have to, is there an issue with beach stickers? What do we, what about if a truck is late? I think over a summer season, you can expect, if a truck wasn't late once, I think something would be wrong. If so.
My truck was late once, and I didn't give him the product.
Yeah,
Okay?
Yeah, no, that's the type of thing I think we could just, if you're gonna do it, I think we need to think of all the factors. The fact of, someone, you got a visitor offloading kayaks or something. I don't think that.
Not at low tide.
You might I just think we should think of these factors, and I think it would present a better case to the state if one chose to go that route.
I think there's just as much likelihood as a truck's going to be late on the Powers Landing as it would be in the pier.
But remember, the stuff is iced at the pier.
At the pier.
Yeah, it was iced. Yeah.
In theory.
Stephen?
Why don't we just tighten up our own town regulation and make sure that the stuff has ice on it when it leaves the lease? Do you leave your lease, Barbara, with stuff without ice on it? No. Okay. In other words, when it leaves the lease on Egg Island, it should have to have ice on it. It's no different than you guys. If it's in a boat and it leaves Egg Island lease, it should have ice on it. No different than you. The boat is the truck that's taking it to the pier. I think that's where part of this problem is too. In other words, if you guys put it in the back of your truck at the lease, before you drive up the beach with it, you have ice on it. If it's on Egg Island, it goes from the water to the boat should have ice on it before it leaves the lease.
But the regulations say landing, Stephen.
I know. Well, the town of Wellfleet can increase the regulation on it. The town of Wellfleet has the right to do that, to make the regulation more stringent than what it
It's not
is.
that there was a problem, but we have not seen problems. Right?
Oh,
They're
you got blinders on, honey. I gotta leave on this note.
My experience is that it's happening at a harvest is happening at high tide, right? And they're bringing them in right from the water.
I like to stay on point with Powers Landing. I don't take oysters off of there because I don't grow oysters. For low tide, you don't need a parking sticker. They all know who we are, okay? It's the only time the parking lot isn't overly used. So if somebody wants to bring shellfish off at low tide, I think we're not overburdening the resource, being the parking area. I don't see where the problem with stuff coming off at a different landing is. I mean, the kayaks are gonna be there, not at low tide. The swimmers aren't gonna be there at low tide. I mean, the only people who use that parking lot at low tide are the fishermen. And now we're not even allowed to unload our catch there. I think we're going backwards.
Well, if you allow it at Powers Landing, you'd have to allow it at Indian Neck too.
I got no problem with that, Barbara. I got no problem with that. I think we need to find out if the state will allow us to do that.
And I think the Board of Selectmen should ask the state to allow us to do that. Because the stuff is iced coming on the grant. Iced on the grant coming into a truck. Right away.
Iced on the ground, what?
I iced the product on my grant
Uh-huh.
and bring it to the truck. Iced. It's not dry. It's not just thrown in the back of the truck. It is iced on the grant and then taken to the truck.
Uh-huh. Okay, I thought you were doing it within the 2-hour window.
No,
So it
no,
wasn't
absolutely
iced
not.
Until it hit the land.
No. If my product's out there and the ice don't show up within 2 hours, I don't, you know.
I think the other thing, so I was reading this on the agenda, and a lot of those guys in the Herring River, those wild pickers, they have to sell it the same day, and it's a wicked pain in the ass. And I was talking to Grant a while ago, and he's like, I can't fish in certain times in the summer because I don't have anything.
You can't?
If he could put it on ice down there and go right to that landing, it would allow these guys to function better and help Grant
What do you
people.
mean if they could?
There's times when they can't work because of the Vibrio rule.
Right.
So if they could just literally just come right off the beach and sell it right there, it would be way easier for them.
You mean without icing it?
No, they would still have Zactics.
The exposure window is hard and fast.
That's what I'm saying. So,
Yeah.
but these guys have to get rid of their stuff in the same day.
Right.
Yes, that's written in stone.
So
Exactly.
why can't
So,
they just drive straight to the dealer?
Yeah.
Because the dealer might be in Boston, and being a wild picker, it's in the summertime, grants are unloading everything, so you can't sell oysters that easily.
You
And
can just forget about an afternoon tide.
you could just, an afternoon tide is not gonna happen. So, but if a truck was there waiting and Parlanti was there, and these guys, and a truck was there, helping grant people, and they could take some wild stuff too, 5 bags, that would increase.
Well, why can't guys work it out with their dealers to be at the pier or
Because there's
wherever they are?
3 dealers in an area where you can drive to.
You'd still have to
Within
meet a
the day.
dealer at
You'd still
Powers.
have to meet a dealer.
He's
so
talking about the
dealers-
dealer coming to Powers.
I get it.
So what's the difference between the dealer coming to Powers or in terms of?
These guys
or
can't
the
save
pier?
up oysters. You guys are selling 50 bags at a time. These dudes are selling 5 bags at a time and making $200, $100, $150.
No, totally get what you're saying, but how does this, I
How does
just
it
don't
help
understand
them?
how.
How does it help them?
Yeah, having.
Because they can sell every day.
They
They
already
can go.
can sell every
They
day.
could sell every day, then they could just.
No, they can't sell every day because they can't do an evening tide because these places aren't open.
They close at 5 o'clock.
Right.
It's a big
It's light
deal.
up
It's a
till
serious
9.
thing. It's dude, you can't even go to work sometimes.
Right.
It sucks.
It does, but that's just the way it
That's the way
is.
it
I
is.
mean,
But
you can't bring it to the
But
grant.
it is just the way it is, exactly.
Right.
But if you had a truck down there, then it wouldn't be just the way it is. You would be helping more than just one person.
Well, what I'm saying is, what's the difference between a truck being at, trucks can't even go down to the Herring River, I mean, where would they go? What's the
Parking
difference
lot.
between,
They get stuck.
Wait,
Oh, the Powers Landing, I thought you meant the kayak parking lot.
well, what's the
Do you not
difference
see what I'm
between
saying?
them meeting a guy at Powers Landing with their ice
or at Max
product
Seafood.
or at the town pier? Because it's already ice. What's the difference between those two places?
It would be right there. It would, I get what you're saying.
Well, I mean, if they've got a truck and they're coming off the beach, what's the difference between them going to Powers Landing and going 5 minutes down the road to the pier? I mean, is a dealer not gonna come to Wellfleet because they
Never
got...
mind.
This is a real problem, this is a real problem.
It is a
And
real,
I think when you talk about an ice machine for the town, you should talk about having that be also a walk-in cooler and clear it with the state that the wild guys can bring their stuff off the tide into the cooler.
Not a
In
bad
the
for
evening.
what?
That's what.
Into the cooler for what? To be held overnight?
Yeah,
Well, nobody can do that. We can't, grant holders can't do that either.
but I'm
We have to go
saying,
directly to the dealer. Nothing can be held overnight.
I understand that, but
Yeah, let's just get
Won't
back to
happen,
meeting
huh?
the trucks at the landing for a second.
These guys gotta lock their trucks at the pier if they lose
Yeah.
in this year. I mean, it's just a rudimentary lock, but they literally.
what if the truck doesn't come? Those are gone?
If the truck doesn't come?
The truck breaks down and doesn't come, that means you lose your catch?
That means our
You
catch
throw
would
it
have to go
away?
back, it would have to be a video return.
So it has to
And
go
it would have
back
to
in
be
the water
locked
for
Resubmerged.
and go back for
Resubmerged.
resurgence.
10
For
days.
10 days.
Yeah. Yeah, it has to be a resurgence.
What were we saying about locking your truck?
Jenny, look at
Yeah, you gotta put lock on it.
Oh,
Yeah, it just has to be a pass.
Until at 7 o'clock, and then
Homeland
the water guys
Security.
could bring, they could do an outgoing time because they could.
Well, it's
leave truck at
usually
7.
the guy that I call up and already got set how many bushels he's taking and everything else, and it's a bang, bang thing, you know?
Yeah, Michael Sky's not gonna be interested in hooking up with Joe Schmo and Mary Lou and Jingle Bells because they might have stuff coming off at the same
Unless they
time.
build a
Unless they
relationship.
have a relation, like, it
Yeah,
doesn't
unless
have
they
to be
have a
Mike's
relationship,
truck,
of
though. It
course
could
they
be
do.
like Pangea meeting
But Pangea
somebody.
meets everybody else at the pier and it's not a problem.
I'm just saying, it might be
So-
easier for some people, that's all. Like, I mean, I just don't get why, like, we could just try. We could just try, like, to do one other thing. Like,
So you're
it's not-
saying to do it at Powers?
Yeah, why not? Like, I mean, even if it doesn't go through, you could just try and ask.
So you could ask, but I mean, I think you would have to open it up to a lot more landings. I think people in South Wellfleet would want this, and people in Indian Neck would want this, so we're back to like nobody needing
So
trucks
we
at
don't
the
need
beach.
the variance
fish
anymore,
truck
but
down
let's
to
talk,
Union
so
Neck.
there's a
Just
couple of
one
things.
But we
One,
do
I
need
want
the
to talk
variance.
about what are the landings, and two, we talked about this in the office, and, that we would basically try and, like, get a plan from each person at the different landings, so that we knew what was happening with communication,
And
which you
also,
offered.
if we got rid of our variance, then when you came off the beach with oysters, you'd have to stay there until the truck comes. There's no leaving the landing. Like, you would have to be
Well,
there at your own landing until the truck came. There's no.
Where at the pier, you,
You can leave.
At least
Well,
kind of
you're
drive,
supposed
or
to
you're
stay.
supposed to,
Well,
you know what I mean, so.
let
That's
me
another
talk, what are the other landings? Let's just make a list of
Well,
landings.
but the bottom line is, Jake, for a landing like mine on Omaha, they can't get an 18-wheeler down their truck. That's why the variance has to be here
Yeah.
for people that have to,
And
have
I
to
don't
drive
think the dealer's
somewhere.
gonna wanna go pick up at each landing, so I
But
mean.
I just want to know if we're saying we would open it up, I just want to think, all of us, where could this be? Obviously, Powers and Indian Neck are easy. If you
Mhm.
say South Wellfleet, I can't think of a landing in South Wellfleet that would be adapted to do this.
Yeah, I don't know.
Even
So
Indian
think of
Neck,
one for me in
those
case I'm
people would
missing
complain
something.
the second a truck went down.
Yeah.
That would not work.
That would not fly, I'm telling you right
Of
now.
what, Indian Neck?
Indian Neck, King Philip Road, that
Oh,
area?
yeah.
No,
You bring it.
not that.
Oh.
We can't, you can't turn an
Or the
18, you
jetty?
can't turn a truck around there. We're talking about the jetty.
Okay. you talking
Parking
about
lot.
the jet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even there, even the jetty board,
I mean, if you wanted,
big heavy
But
truck.
we'd have to get
going down.
permission from the beach department for sure.
I mean, Michael's here, I mean, if you wanted to try
For
a
both.
couple landings, you could, and see how it goes, and see what happens, and see what the state says, and, I mean, it doesn't hurt to ask. I mean, the only other problem with this too is you're gonna get more, if this is allowed, you're gonna get more people not icing their product, because you're allowed to meet the truck without ice right at the landing, so.
No.
No, when you
No.
leave your license site.
When you leave the license site, you have ice.
Oh, you're not allowed to drive your truck
No.
within 2 hours? Are you sure?
Yeah.
They won't allow it, no.
Yeah.
It has to be iced coming into the landing.
Yeah.
Unless you're on a boat.
Which, brings us back to Stephen's comment about when you leave the license site. But it does say at the landing, so it's, I
And
can
then
follow
who's
up
to
with
say,
Chris
I mean,
Malachi.
just, who's to say how long the oysters are out of the water on Egg Island? Who knows, right?
who knows how long they were out of water in the back of your truck, like, I mean.
So this is an anomaly that Chris Scalacci readily admits to. When you have, because there's a ton of places that have deep water grants that never come out, they're subtidal. And even ones that are intertidal, once the, isn't it 1 minute past high tide?
1 minute past high tide. You can go, you can, if you exposed your stuff on a big low tide and it still was out of the water all day, let's say on Becky's Grant, okay, and you chose to go to, you wanted to bring them to market later in the day, you would have to wait till 1 minute past high tide before you picked them up. So Ralph does down there.
And he says,
the
you know,
point
it's
of
not
landing
fair.
thing, yeah, all the state, all these discrepancies are just factors of topography, of depth. You know, Zach and his crew, you know, deal with the deficiencies, you know, of a deep water grant, but their reward at the end of the day is that they're allowed to steam them to the boat ramp.
Right.
You know,
Because-
within the 2 hours, and they cover them with a space blanket, and I personally witnessed them ready to, they had 5 minutes on the clock, and they were ready to go turn around and resubmerge unless the Shellfish company came up with some ice, and they went to Harbor Freeze and got it.
I mean,
But that's what I witnessed on again, the worst thing I've seen, again, I haven't, you know, usually on big tides, I'm doing something else, but one time I had a guy back up to the ramp, he wanted to put him on his truck and then steam down to, you know, where the Pangea truck meets down near the bandstand, and I got the truck closer, you know what I mean? I felt that a load of uniced oysters, even though it was sort of the point of landing, I felt the boat ramp was the landing and not down at the bandstand. So
From what I've heard though, from people that have discussed this, is that sometimes the boat ramp is full of people that are using it.
Yes.
And then there's a problem with the boats coming in and saying, I've got a perishable product here, you're gonna have to wait, I need to get in before you
A problem.
put your boat in.
Yeah.
And people have been not real happy about that situation.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody wants to like catch a Vibrio case for their town either. Like nobody wants to be that guy. So it's like we didn't have any Vibrio cases last year, right?
No, we
So
didn't.
I mean, obviously people are like aware of what they're doing. I mean, and I get that it could happen more, but like I think we're all like really on top of it, you know. And as far as loading at the boat ramp, obviously the harbor is very poorly set up and it needs to be dredged. We're using the boat ramp. There should be booms, like, you know, like if there's all these boats unloading and all this stuff happening and all these oysters coming into the harbor, we obviously don't have the infrastructure to handle all that kind of volume, you know.
Right.
So-
Well, obviously, anyone that's bringing stuff in from Egg Island is keeping their stuff underwater until that last possible minute when they know that the ramps, they're gonna be able to get to the ramp. Because it'd be really stupid to get halfway to the ramp and get stuck in the mud. So you, I mean, these guys
It
know what they're
happens
doing
all
up
the
there. It's
time.
not like they're, yeah, but it's not like they're gonna come in when they have to wait for a million years, so. Well, what do you think? Is it doable to talk about the 2 landings
I
then?
think so.
Indian Neck?
But I think we need to go through the
And-
details.
We need to go well,
Through the details.
through the details.
Through the details. You know what, to talk about if the truck's late.
I can see
You know,
the
and
schedule where
if we got, maybe when, you know, we should, you know, if we're doing that, we should pay a little more attention to the boat ramp too. That's on us.
You don't think that there could be a variance per person that wants to use that lot? Like, you don't think it would be possible for someone like Michael to go and get his own variance for that
That's what I was
area?
actually thinking. I was like, I was thinking a variance to the variance, and for in certain individuals
cases.
that wanted to do it. And so what I'll do is I'll make the first call to Eric Hickey, which is the person that I work on this with, and I'll ask about the potential of doing a variance to the variance as a first thing. Then I can talk, I obviously know, Michael, it'd be great if you would like jot down your plan so that I have something concrete. And then talk to Chopper, is that, and have him write me up his little plan of what he'd like to do. And then I guess, if you guys are interested or anybody else, we can certainly contact the grant people in those two areas where that serves as your landing. So Indian Neck, it's really only going to be available if your grant is inside the breakwater. Then you have Indian Neck as your landing. And if your grant is, I guess, it could be anywhere from Mayo Beach down. Because certainly even the puffers could choose to come off at Powers if you wanted to, am I right?
Yeah.
Okay.
If
So we could, I would then try and speak with those specific grant holders, offer them the opportunity, once I get information on what's gonna be the best way to go about this.
If there's like, obviously everybody's using the ramp and that is not good for anybody at the ramp, like rec boaters, businesses, or anything like that. Maybe we could like ask the town to put in like some kind of boom at the L pier that you could lift up a Zactic full of ice and just put it right in the back of a truck and go.
The what like Keith's putting on his boat.
Isn't there a boom already on the pier?
That boom sucks. Like I don't like the booms in P-Town. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Every one in a while, fleet gets destroyed.
Well,
for some reason, we can't
handle it. We're not mature enough.
Yeah, we're
not
we
grown
need
ups.
adult supervision.
Yep. If we had something like that though, with adult supervision,
We should have something like that with adult supervision.
because that would be awesome. Because we really could take like a Zactic full of 50 bags in there and load it up and put it right in the back of the truck, like we do in P-Town with lobsters and scallops and everything else, and it would be 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And we'd be done. And it wouldn't tie up the ramp. These guys could launch their boats. Wreck floaters wouldn't scream at us. We wouldn't look like idiots taking out one bag at a time. It would, and rushing with the tide, like to get out of the way of like all these people, like that they're trying to get on their trailer. And seriously, it's bad. It takes a lot of time, and we're rushing the clock too.
So what would it take to get a good boom down at the end of the pier? Are they?
How much?
Where's the whole pier?
What do you think?
What do I think?
Yeah, well, you know a lot about booms, you're in that kind of business. What's wrong? Why can't we keep it seems like a no-brainer. It doesn't seem like they're that technical.
It's not. I think that if we got well, first of all, the boom that we got originally wasn't really capable of picking up what we're talking about. No, things have progressed. I think the original boom was to pick up maybe 4 bushel of clams, like, at a time in a bag, type deal. We could look into a boom. I mean, you could ask Rex what he's paid for maintenance on them. That give you a budget.
Ask who?
Rex, Provincetown, see what he spent for maintenance on them. It's going to be an expense to start with, but then after that, it's just going to be a maintenance thing. We should have one.
It would speed up productivity, and it would be way less, Nancy could just go right there and check us.
So it's a health thing,
It is a health thing. It literally is a health thing and a safety thing. If we're unloading bags individually and somebody's got to get their boat out, or these guys want to launch boats or whatever, somebody's coming in from an emergency and we're all bitched up in there.
And what about the elevator? I mean, it's gonna not
Straight
crash
shot.
when too big a truck gets on there.
The advantage
that'll be fine.
The advantage of the out here is you've probably got 40 minutes at this point where you can get there when you can't get to the ramp.
That's right, that's another good point.
That's my whole point, is the tide.
Because of the tide.
You have to work around the tide.
Yeah.
And when we go to the ramp, we tie to the dock some mornings so that we don't have to go with
So
it.
you don't have to go over to the, yeah. So that would be Helen?
Yeah, so the thing to do, which Nancy has already thought of without my saying it, is how many people would be using it, right?
The boom?
Yeah, and how much it would cost. And then go to Dan really early with it.
So
Right.
maybe we put it in the capital improvement plan for 2021.
Yeah, in other words, document this summer, how many people use it and for how long and how often and blah, blah,
Well,
blah.
nobody's using it because it's not.
No, but how many
Oh, yeah.
would, potentially? In other words, how many people are having to unload, in other ways?
Well, there's 16
One of them birds.
shellfishing boats and
Don't have-
the grant.
Yeah, don't have
Yeah.
to tell me.
So that's quite a few.
I mean, you guys on Indian Neck could literally put your Carolina skiff there, load them up, and then go to the boom. Not have to load them in the back of the truck, or, you know what I mean? If it's a crap tide, you could get your stuff out quicker. Like, you know how you have to wait for the tide? Sometimes you and I are down there, we're like, nothing's happening today. We're
You
going
wouldn't
home.
even have to ice it.
Yeah, on some days, everyone could avoid ice on the right kind of
Is
time.
that right?
Or you do the 1 minute past high tide.
And we'd have 10 booms.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got the right dealer and the right kind of trucks, well, I'm looking for somebody to come down from Boston, so I'm not gonna take a chance of not icing my product.
No,
but it would be
Because
easy.
sometimes I have to wait 3 or 4 hours for
Yeah,
the
yeah,
truck to
we're,
get
you
there,
know.
I mean, that would be,
We're pretty aware of where people, by now, or where they sell, or,
Yeah,
what they
yeah.
do, and we really,
But a boom
we
makes
have a
sense.
pretty good trust in people.
Yeah.
Maybe it's misguided, maybe we're missing something, but,
Yeah, okay. So, we're gonna move on from here then?
I have
So-
one quick question.
I don't know.
Is Lieutenant Island going to be open for co-housing?
So,
That was the
that
other.
is our topics for future agendas. Let's just
See,
get
the
through
thing
the
is,
rest
the
of the
future agenda
agenda. But it's not on, so we can't actually talk
Oh,
about it.
right,
But we're gonna
right.
talk about it
Okay.
under future agenda topic.
All right.
Okay, so to finish up this, the variance for landings, should,
I'm gonna call Eric Hickey and get some guidance. And then,
Letters from the people.
yeah, a couple of plans. Eric Hickey and Mike Palante and Chopper plans. After that, first I just want to run it by Eric Hickey, then I'll be in touch with you and Chopper, and if it merits, if the answer is very positive, then I can reach out to
I
other
hope
people
it
too.
has before the variance ends.
Variance ends in 2020. So,
Okay.
I'm not going to take a year and a half to do it.
Oh, I was gonna say, well, it's not gonna work this year then, right?
Who knows? I can
Well,
make a
I was
call.
gonna say, because have the selectmen get on board, because they're the ones we heard the other day, they have to make the
Yes,
recommendation.
you're right, yep. So let me see what happens. To trigger the actual change.
Yes.
So let me I have to make a call to Eric Hickey first, we'll take it from there, I'll give you right
I've
now.
been working on this for a long time now, myself. so,
You have,
Yeah.
I haven't yet. But I will now.
okay, that sounds good. And we're gonna work on trying to think about, would you mind checking in on that for us?
On what?
Alfred, on a boom, like what,
I get it planned out detail. They have different sizes, I don't know what the, yes, I will be happy to do that.
now if there was a boom at that, on the end of the Elk here, this is gonna sound really dumb. Would we have to have some kind of mechanism on that boom, like a winch, I mean, a plug-in winch, would have our own winch on the boom?
No, no.
Or would the winch be on the,
We're gonna make it simple, there's a button that says up and down, the chain is gonna go up and down. It's all gonna be up.
so you're not gonna have to use the wrap and the line, pulling the,
It's the coolest thing in the world. You can
it
lift
just
up.
goes up and down?
Is there is there danger involved?
There's no danger involved, safe.
Danger. Danger will rob us.
Is it a chain or a rope?
Chain.
It's a chain
It's a chain.
that feeds into like a bucket or?
It's a chain up top hanging on the end of the boom, so everything's self-contained and slides back and forth, so there's no moving parts anywhere near anything.
It's super safe.
So it's super safe, but we'd have to know what the load, what it would take for a load, if it's an exacta full of, what is
It's a
it?
giant Zactic full of water and lobsters.
Wow.
Bluefish, 5,000 pounds of
And
bluefish.
scallops and
Wow.
lobster
That's
traps.
nice.
Oh,
And not drop it on the deck of the boat?
it lowers it down very slowly, it just goes,
Dave, could you build this?
no.
No, it's a regular manufactured piece of equipment.
It's just like a thing you buy and works.
Just
You have to look at these guys scowl at you at the ramp, and it's not cool. You're like,
No.
I think this would be amazing.
I know all about
Yeah,
ramp trouble.
to get that tie-up off the ramp would be.
So if Alfred would take lead, that would be amazing.
I will find out about the
Thank you.
So, 2 selling points. 3 selling points. No, 2. One
already
is,
there.
doesn't tie up the ramp
It's already there.
for other
Yeah,
people.
that's what I'm saying, it's already there.
And
dude, you would look cool
keep
if
the
you would've gone up
reputation
there.
spotless about
Pictures.
your Rio.
People really look at that stuff too.
Think of other selling points from my end.
It's a visitor's
For the
spectator
boot?
delight.
Yeah. In other words, for
Oh, for when I have to bring
For
it to.
FinCom,
Yeah,
and-
yeah.
okay. Dan says yes to you.
We'll see, after
You
the
guys have
meeting,
that.
I don't know, people were like, there's too much money to spend, there's not much money.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say.
Thank you, give you another employee.
So at the, if we want to move on, because we want to get out of here, it's already after 9. So we had added on at the last minute a Mayo Creek Restoration
You want me to do
Committee
that real quick,
discussion.
10 minutes?
Yeah, just,
Okay.
just 5 minutes.
5 minutes. So since 2014, I've been this committee's representative on the Mayo Creek Restoration Committee. Basically, we've been looking at how to restore the Mayo Creek estuary. It's the dike marsh behind the Pearl. So we looked through health department records, met with the butters, with the groundwater levels, and contracted and directed some hydrodynamic modeling to find out a way that you can maximize salt marsh restoration without compromising any of the abutters. So based on that, we think we have a way of accomplishing that without any harm to the low structures, any harm to wastewater systems or the wells. This would involve diking out some of the marsh on the Mayo Creek side and putting in a large culvert with water level control. And this would hopefully lead to about 20 acres of restoration, of marsh restoration. So at this point, the committee is going to present to the selectmen, and then the selectmen would hire some professional assistants, review the work, develop plans. I mean, it'd still be a really long process, so this is kind of the beginning, but basically what the committee was charged to do is kind of coming to an end, and it really needs to go on to more professional people who understand this better. A clean marsh should reduce fecal coliform, it's what the state tests for shellfish, and the salt marsh should also absorb some of the nitrogen. So that's where we're at, and I would just be looking for the committee to, I guess, endorse the project up until this point. It's not a done deal, not everything has been looked at, but it obviously needs further monitoring, further professional guidance, but yeah, that's basically what I'm asking. And if you guys have any questions, or the audience had any questions or comments, I can do my best.
And where was the culvert?
The culvert would be where the
It's under Commercial Street.
under Commercial Street, yeah, right by the park.
So, and where was the
Needs to
dike?
go
Where
in
was
ways.
it?
That's where the dike is.
I'm sorry, so
Sorry,
we would
I'm
be
not
doing,
faster
the culvert there over at Commercial Street would be enlarged?
Yes.
And so there would be more tidal flow in and
Yeah,
out?
lower low tides, higher high tides, so the salt marsh
Benefit everything else.
would be restored. So if there's ever flooding on that side, it would drain out faster
Into
So
the,
in order to connect
into the fabric. So it helps people back there. Helen?
Of course I have questions.
Check.
So this is, of course, the kind of thing that the 208 Plan Committee, the Comprehensive Wastewater Management Planning Committee should be working closely with you on. Have they met with you? Have you had a joint meeting with them?
Well, Pat Winslow is a representative from the wastewater committee.
I know that.
So, no, we haven't had a joint meeting. From my understanding, a lot of the stuff that they have done is still been in process. So I'm not really too familiar with the 208 plan. I'm just...
No, but it is still in process, and what I'm concerned about is, first of all, that the work of your committee, which is spot on for what they're doing, is all clearly known by all of them, not just Pat. Pat, with respect for Pat, But they as a committee need to be fully aware together of what you're doing. And you understand I'm implying that for whatever reason, I'm not putting them down. This can happen. They may not know about it. The other thing is, have you guys met with Hillary? In other words, are you working at all with Hillary? Have you been working?
I believe that John the Chair has had communication with her, so.
So it's really important that her department communicate with you.
Yeah.
And what happens is groups work very intensely on things and then they don't communicate. Doesn't mean they're bad people, but the result is often not good. And those people that are drafting with various help from various people on the Comprehensive Wastewater Committee need to be aware of all the other concerns at this stage, not when they submit their final plan to the DEP. So that's the only reason I'm saying it.
Totally.
And the other thing is, you guys will then be able to slack off and, not do as much, which is to be hoped, you've done
Yeah, I
this.
believe our plan is to dissolve the committee. I mean, this committee was just basically to look at what's
I know.
feasible, what we can do. and
But I
then-
want to address that.
Yeah.
So it's fine if you say, okay, we're going to, go into hibernation. Don't dissolve.
Okay.
Here's why, because then further down, I've been on a couple of things that this has happened. Charter Review Committee hasn't just stopped now when the charter got passed at the election ballot. You don't know what's going to come up. And you may have to have a meeting about a little cluster of meetings in 2 years from now. I'm serious. Don't dissolve, don't bother. Just stop having meetings.
Yeah. Anybody else?
No, I don't have anything.
How many septic systems are going to become non-compliant?
I don't know. I mean, like I said, a lot of work still needs to be done.
I mean, I don't know if the board understands what that means. It means the septic systems that are installed now, and the current thing, if the water table comes up an inch, in a lot of those septic systems, they are considered non-compliant.
Well,
so when you sell your property,
I can actually answer that. It would be zero because this project's not going to go ahead if it's going to compromise anybody's septic.
well, we can prove that it's going to compromise the septics only because the core samples in my yard. When the clapper broke the last time, we were in the stage of putting another septic system in. I have 2 septic systems at the boathouse, which happens to be on Mayo Creek. And because of that, we have 2 septic systems at different levels, because when the creek wasn't working properly, when the water was coming in more and leaving more, the water table changed. I didn't make this up. The Board of Health, through their core samples, proved it. It's all in my folder. So when the water changes elevation, which they say it isn't going to happen, but they also told me it wasn't happening when we did the last thing, and the table shows it. Through engineers, not through my decision. Because obviously I would have rather just extend the septic system instead of putting another one in. So I think somebody has to really look at the data that was formulated through a normal septic system that had nothing to do with this. I think you're going to find that proof instead of theory is going to show the table is going to rise some.
Totally. And the goal is not to change the meat pad level, so no, so we got it compliant, but obviously they'll be monitoring for this project. And this type of stuff that you're talking about, monitoring septics and looking at this is like, above my pay grade, and I think people should look at those.
Well,
Can I address what you're saying?
I'd like to finish first, Helen. The problem with this thing is the non-compliancy means that somebody like the Pearl, who put a septic system in, if they wish to sell it, Board of Health is not grandfathered, so that septic system's no good. Or it certainly could be that, because I don't believe the town can grandfather these systems. So that's what my concern is. It's not the fact that the septic system has failed. It's non-compliant because the distance between the bottom of it and groundwater is not meeting state code. And that's huge. That's why I have 2 septic systems, because when the water table was up, which they said won't happen, but it did.
Your concern is totally valid, and
The other question I have is, this isn't town property. These are all, the town of Wellfleet owns very little in this thing. The clapper is on private property. Excuse me, it's on the road, but it dumps into private property. not mine, but an adjacent one. So people have to look at, flooding this is probably a good idea, but how are you gonna take people's properties and cover them with water? There's gonna be a fight.
No, these are great points, and when we meet with the selectmen, I definitely hope you come and bring some of these things up. But, you know, right now, I don't really know how to answer that. So maybe we could just look at it from a shellfishing perspective, the idea of restored salt marsh. It's been shown to reduce fecal coliform and reduce nitrogen, and that's kind of where I'm coming from with this. So, I mean, if somebody...
I can just, you know.
So can I?
The NRAD's been following this too, and the fact is that they're not, it's just like the Herring River restoration. I mean, it's gonna, all the abutters are gonna be notified, and everybody's gonna, it's gonna be, nothing's a done deal until it's been scoped out and figured out what's gonna happen to people's septics and wells.
I want to be clear though, it's not like the Herring River, because the Herring River is owned by the National Seashore, okay? Mayo Creek is owned by private people, so it's not that we are...
There's private property owners on the Herring River too, though.
Yeah, but the Herring River is owned the majority by the seashore. Mayo Creek is owned by private property. The town of Wellfleet owns about maybe 5 to 10 acres in it. The rest of it is all owned by us. It's a big difference. When you say notifying the abutters, you're not notifying as those abutters, you're notifying it as somebody drowning underneath of it. The difference.
All right, well, it seems to me that I don't know how the project ever got going, if it's...
Can I address this, please, because, I'm sorry, Alfred. So this has been under discussion, what to do in that area since the early 2000s. And the simplest way that happens in other communities, and I hope that Mayo Creek looked at this, and that I've spoken with Hillary about recently, because we're going to be getting funds, right, is to have a cluster system down there. And to have the cost being met in part by the people, the private people who own lots along there. But that is one of the great hot spots in town on the harbor. So that was good that the committee started working on it. But we've also got sea level rise coming along. And what you do is you have a very small sewer system with a minimal run of pipes, because pipes are terrible, they're Achilles heel. You know, when they go, everything goes kaplooey. But a business like yours, Alfred, would be on it. The Pearl would be on it. And you'd have, you know, a private-public partnership to make it happen. And I am extremely upset that, for example, the marina had their new septic system put in without this being addressed, having it be part of a cluster system for that whole area down there. In other words, there are all these, I mean, Max should be on it, and it should treat the water to a certain extent.
Oh, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to wastewater and you know, two-way plant and all of that. And, you know, looking at Mayo Creek, I mean, the reason that in 2014 that I wanted to look at this is because the water coming out of there is disgusting. And
yes.
As high counts of people call for it, I just felt like something had to be done about it. So we looked into it. We think we have a way to fix it. It's going to be a long process of professionals looking at it and dealing with it. You know, it's not like it's going to go in front of the selectmen and then it's going to be a done deal.
Well, the main thing is to have the health department sit down with the health department, it doesn't have to be your committee, and talk about should that septic waste that's coming out of all those houses be addressed by alternative systems, or should there be small cluster systems there that are shared by 4 or 5, right? And other communities do this. In Duxbury, they did it when they had, you know, 20 years ago, they had to close their fishery. And they put in a cluster system and it worked really well, and it was in exactly that kind of area. Alfred, and it included businesses like yours, so.
We can't even get a cluster system so we have a toilet at the ball field. Well, we're going to get everybody to go together and do
Cluster
something.
system?
We don't even have a public bathroom that goes into a septic system at the ball field.
That's not a cluster system. Cluster system has...
I understand what a cluster system, but the town can't even get through the... I'm getting off, sorry. I
So we're
apologize.
getting off topic here because this is like a huge...
Oh, it's
never
huge.
had a
I mean, there's so many things and a lot of this stuff can be...
Sure we do.
and
In
maybe
the
we should have waited on this.
swamp.
But, you know, definitely a lot of this stuff can be dealt with at the selectmen's meeting.
No,
Bring
thanks.
stuff up. But as like a shell fishing group and the idea of restoring the marsh, I mean, does anybody want to make a recommendation or not for it? Or do you guys just want to deal with this later?
We need more info.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's pretty, you know, if you guys don't want to support it, it's fine.
Please.
Well, we would like to support anything that's going to make the harbor healthy and the shellfishing healthier. So we want to support the future,
Don't try to be nice.
no, we'd like to support the future work on the restoration of Mayo Creek.
We
That's all you
could,
need to say.
Yeah,
It doesn't mean you need to say, no matter what, you endorse it. You could say, yeah, you want to look further into it. You recommend looking further into this project.
Into the.
we do that. Is that what you want us to vote on?
Perfect, that's great.
I make a motion that we have them look further into it with our approval.
Great.
We'd like to make a
Second.
motion that we support the Mayo Creek restorations, exploration
Yeah.
of restoration.
Ooh,
Conjunction.
that could be the like catchphrase for the whole
Great.
thing.
That's,
Exploration of the restoration.
You say it one more time?
I second it.
Made a motion that MCRC continues to
The-
look into.
Look into the
or the
restoration
town,
of,
and work on
of
it.
Mayo Creek.
We're not going to do anything anymore. I'm done with this.
I quit.
Okay.
Quit right here.
Passing it on.
I second it.
Which restoration of Mayo Creek?
All those in favor?
All those in favor?
Can I suggest too that maybe
Thanks,
at
guys.
some point in the future,
Chicks.
have a committee members come by or get a.
Keep up the good work.
Who's second?
Right. All right. So we need to think about our next meeting and our future topics for future agendas.
So let me just address Lieutenant Island South.
Oh, yeah.
Regulation 6.4.7 is closed to the taking of shellfish from June 1st to September 30th. If this board would like to change shellfish to oysters, Shellfish Department is down with it.
Where does South Lieutenant Island
So-
start?
So South Lieutenant Island, Gray Rock Bridge, and then there's that
Yeah.
little road there that you could take, right? And then at the end there is an osprey pole. From the osprey pole straight across to Eastham and everything east. So basically Audubon.
Okay, yeah. Great.
Yeah, so
Ellen?
the reason to have it be shellfish and not just oysters, I'm just telling you what the language was
Go right
because of, yeah, was because in the summer, it's hard to get over there. And if you just see somebody out there, you have to get out there to make sure they're taking oysters.
That's fine. That's fine.
And not anything else, but there was a time element and, you know.
We have to go to Lieutenant Island on patrol every day anyway.
Okay, but I'm just telling you what the reasoning is.
Yeah, I
wasn't
get it, that's
telling-
fine.
yeah.
And,
So, you know.
At that point, I think the Shellfish Department, when that went through, there was a lot of problems with trucks, if I remember right. And they were down to using their own vehicles, and then there was only like one vehicle and no vehicles running.
I guess I would just want to make sure that I ran it by Bob Prescott. Because, I'm new, I don't know what the history was. We don't have a problem with it. We will be checking to make sure that people aren't coming off of there because there's a concern about exposure time because the tide goes out so early down there that the exposure time for oysters is problematic. And that's why I understand that was put in because of long exposure times for oysters during February season.
Why that was shut down?
That's what I don't know. That's what
The reason was it was hard to.
It was an oversight to just go ahead and exclude cohogs from that. It doesn't need to be on there. And Chip Benton came to me and he said that all his other areas are hurting. He said he needs to have that stay open to cohogs this summer.
My phone has exploded with people interested in co-hogging down there.
Really? Well, they're not allowed.
Only a couple of people. So I will
I just
call
wanted everyone to know,
them.
it wasn't me. that was pushing for this.
So we can't really talk about it or vote on it. So let's
I did
finish
go
the
over
part
it,
of all the
but I had
regulation
no
changes.
say
And
about
I'm
this.
happy to then say, as, you know,
But I will
effective
happily go
immediately.
there
Right, as soon as we get it done.
Backdated to.
terminate them.
So we want to meet in the beginning of, as early as possible, in the beginning of June, so that we can get some of this stuff pushed through as quickly as possible then, right?
Mm-hmm.
And get it done. And we're on evening tides at the beginning of June. We're on the 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, pretty good sized tides.
Oh, God.
What?
Can we meet in the morning?
Yeah. We've got coaching.
Come on.
We're double
No,
tides.
couldn't hear.
It's double tides. It would
Oh,
have to be
double
midday, they're
tides.
double tides, that first week. The second week, though,
It's gonna be a little.
pardon?
We
Second
got
week,
coaching, which means when we're on double time, 16-hour days.
yeah.
And when it's, so it's gonna be a challenge. Let's see if we can
No,
find
but
one day.
like Monday the 10th, for instance, it's low at noon. Tuesday the 11th, it's low at
I'm
1.
not here. Sorry.
Wednesday the
Monday and
12th,
Tuesday, you're not here?
it's low at,
Not here and the guys are coaching.
okay, Monday
Sorry.
the 10th.
I'm not here the 10, 11, 12.
Can any of this wait to the week of the 24th
What?
of June?
Wait till the week of the 24th of June?
Like, this week is perfect.
Mm-hmm. The only problem is that leaves the month, that leaves the whole month of June, Lieutenant Island South closed for people that want to fish there until we have a meeting. Right?
Why can't we just vote on this and let Nancy check into it and she can retroactively or whatever, open it when she can?
Or we could just have like a meeting in the morning or the afternoon.
Yeah, I could do it one.
Yeah, because we need to post it on an agenda.
Oh, that's right,
We can't just
I'm
like
sorry. I keep
decide we
forgetting
want
that.
to just do whatever the
I'm
heck we
sorry,
want
I
to do
keep
whenever we
forgetting
want to do it.
All that.
Okay, so is it double times the week of the 3rd?
It is.
Even if it is. I
Is
mean,
there
we could just,
anywhere we
like,
could
suck it
meet
up.
for just an hour on that week, midday, to get out of the sun for a minute and have lunch?
Yes,
You know, we could do a lunch day.
okay.
All right, now I can take off, I'll have one of the guys do coaching.
Okay,
Yeah,
like
I'll just
Tuesday
take
the
off that
4th,
time.
it's high water at 1 o'clock.
Yeah. 10 o'clock in the morning?
What day are you
It's
talking?
6:30, Tuesday the 4th?
8 o'clock in the morning?
Can't make it, okay, how, but no, because it's low at 6:30.
Go back to your week of the 10th. What about the 13th and 14th?
Well, because it's low water midday.
Go back to the 4th.
Double
Can't we just
time.
meet for like an hour on the 4th?
Well, it's gonna be, you know, if we're gonna go over all the reg changes,
It's gonna be a long.
if, you know,
We
have to give it
were
time.
talking about just the south side of Lieutenant Island, right? Boom,
No.
one thing.
No, because then you got,
You want to do the select.
you got the
stuff.
domicile, you got the hand raking. That's 3 that I can think of right off.
You mean the towing, the drag?
Yeah, but that's a change, you know, you gotta look at it and make a decision and vote.
Right.
You
That
got
could be for the
Southampton
next
Island.
meeting.
But couldn't that be for the, that's what I'm saying.
Well, no, because it all has to go to the selectmen. I'm not gonna go to the selectmen
Oh,
3
right.
million times.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and concentrate Shellfish on 1 meeting a month, or they're gonna kill me.
At some point, I was told we were gonna talk about the wintering over problem.
Yeah, that's
June.
gonna be a big,
That's June, that's a big meeting.
that's gonna be a big meeting.
Yep.
It's okay. We're gonna take the partition.
Okay, so we need to do just a regulation meeting. No over,
Yep.
just the reg change meeting.
Yep.
I've been patient.
Okay,
Okay.
just a reg change meeting, then we'll do
Well,
a,
2 hours for the rate change meetings a long time.
yeah,
So when we, it's gotta be a 2-hour window.
there's gotta be a 2-hour window and there's.
But what if there's a reg change with overwintering, Alfred?
That's what I
What
just said.
about,
We might wanna talk about overwintering at the same time.
It's
Because
gonna
it might be
be a big meeting.
It needs to happen. It needs to happen.
Well, let's just do it, let's
It's
just do
not
it
gonna
week
be
of
a
the
pocket meeting.
24th, and let's just have a big meeting, and then anybody
okay.
who wants to dig clams on Ten Island, I guess I'll have to wait 3 weeks.
I don't have a problem waiting, Barbara, I just don't want it to get pushed off to where we don't
Right.
all the crap that we're cleaning up now and dealing with all the stuff.
Right.
Yeah,
And that's when we talk about overwintering, and plastics is the other big thing we
That's
have to
right.
talk about,
Yeah.
overwintering and plastics.
And rate changes, so there's
And
three
rate
big
changes,
agenda
that's gonna be a
items.
big agenda.
Yeah.
Plastic?
So we have to just, we have to do it, on the week of the 20, yeah, on that week of the 25th, 24th of June.
The selectmen's meeting is not Tuesday, so Monday's open, Wednesday, that whole week's open.
Unless we could do Thursday the 13th,
Yeah, I can get somebody to
because
go
it's low
coaching.
water at 2:45.
I'm good for that.
Tuesday the 13th would make
Thursday.
it, Thursday the 13th, because it's low at 3, so we could beat at 7.
Or we can
and
meet
that
in the
would be-
morning, can we meet in the morning?
Yeah.
Or, yeah, it'd be better for me.
It'd be so much better.
On the
I
13th?
think I was the only one holding us back, so let's do it.
I'm good in the morning of the 13th.
Good in the
You're allowed to
morning on
do
the
Oh,
13th?
thank you. It's my mom.
Is it not a regulatory
Maybe I'll
board?
share more.
Perfect. How about, what, 9 o'clock?
No, it's not true, Helen.
No,
What?
I agree with you.
We're not allowed to meet in the morning.
I didn't say
You
that.
said that.
I asked some,
Yes, we are, we meet in the morning.
No, but regulatory, there's some.
they're not a regulatory board though.
Yeah, that's it.
Because it interrupts people that are working a 9 to 5 job, they can't get there?
Yeah, regulatory board, I don't think it affects, I think you might want to ask that
So
question.
we met at
Planning
8
board
o'clock
can't
last
meet.
time. We
Last
met at
five.
8 o'clock, well, I'll meet at 7:30, I don't care.
We've met before in the morning.
I'm not complaining, I think it's fine, I just think, look at,
To do regulation
The
changes.
rules.
we can, that's all.
Who's we?
Planning board, but that could be because we're regulatory.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
regulatory.
I don't know how it
We're
fits.
merely advisory. I'm
Okay.
not
I
even
don't
on
know.
it. Why am I talking?
I don't know where you fit
If
in.
we're advisory, that definitely meets in the morning.
Okay.
13th?
Okay, so we're gonna go with Thursday, June 13th,
9 o'clock.
at 9 AM?
Yes. Where, the basement of town hall?
Well, I'll have to check into that.
All right,
I have to-
What time is that?
9 o'clock,
9 AM.
Thursday, 13th.
13th, 9 a.m. not
And
bad.
I thank Nancy for putting all those ducks in a row for us tonight in that packet. Nice job.
You're welcome.
And
very good.
could anyone call me with any other, we already know we have all the regulation changes for overwintering in plastics. So that really is going to be a full agenda right there. Okay. So,
That's what he said to me.